really apply their mind when they are closing in. The seashores are so shallow that the ships out there, they need to be absolutely very much become a kind of a big target, because the movement of the ship in shallow water is slowed down. That is second part. Third thing, in case they want to utilize the Marines along with the 82nd Airborne Forces to capture Khargar or the ports of Iran, they have to move along the coastal regions. But moving along the coastal regions, along with the ships, if you see the Strait of Hormuz, it has got a natural, kind of a defense potential. The small attack boats can quickly go, attack, and reel back. So it is going to be difficult for Americans. If they go for this, it is going to cause a lot of attrition and the casualties at their end.
Right. Colonel, you've explained to us that the geography surrounding Iran and its island, and also the kind of challenges U.S. forces could face if they go for a ground invasion. I'll come back to you for more follow-up questions. We've got some breaking developments that are coming right at the sun. A huge fire has broken out at Kuwait's Mubarak port. It comes following a missile strike by Iran. So we're looking at still Iran going for several assaults all across the Gulf nations. The recent one now reported at Kuwait's Mubarak port, and this comes following a missile strike by Iran. Viewers, we're getting you visuals of that strike as well from Mubarak port. This is where Iranian missiles have now struck the port at Kuwait. Now, those are the visuals on your screen. You can also see the plumes of smoke rising from the site of the attack. And Colonel Bagga continues to stay with us. I'll come back to you, Colonel. Sir, you were explaining to us the kind of challenges U.S. forces would face if they go for a ground invasion. My question to you is, with the kind of statements we are seeing from Donald Trump and the troop mobilization on the ground, do you think a ground invasion is inevitable at this stage of the conflict?
That is the only, scope of winning the war. Till the time Trump says that I got these type of aircraft, the second, fifth generation, sixth generation, or these type of missile system, till the time they don't establish a foothold at any of these places, what I earlier mentioned, that is through southwestern, maybe through Iraq or Kuwait. And recently you have just brought out one of their ports has been attacked. It is a kind of an indication that Iranians are very well aware if they are going to be attacked, these are going to be the launching pads for the US Navy and the US ground forces. So if Trump is trying to buy the time, later, 2 days back, he was mentioning that it is a 5 days pause I'm giving, or I will open Hormuz after 48 hours. He's playing a gamble. He's trying to really create a kind of a psychological warfare on the real minds of the hierarchy of Iranians. Look, there is a lull in the battle where he's buying the time. And he is definitely looking forward for a kind of a total opportunity to create a breach in or create a beachhead at the seashore region so that he can penetrate inside and capture the oil fields of Iran firstly, and thereafter contain all the ports of Iran so that he can start moving that mineral or whatever the oil refineries through those ports and all that. And that is what exactly is going to be a face-off indeed as far Trump is concerned, because his credibility day by day is really getting reduced. So he has to really prove himself at this juncture.
Right. Colonel Bagga, it does look like we are, witnessing a build-up to a massive blow that would come in from the U.S. forces. And I'll come back to you, but we've got some breaking developments coming to light at the side. Iran here has now accused the U.S. and Israel of clear intent to commit genocide. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also said that more than 600 schools have been damaged or either demolished, and more than 1,000 students and teachers, they've been killed or wounded in these strikes by Iran, by Israel and the US. They're calling him the aggressors, which are targeting pattern, accompanied by their rhetoric, which leaves a little doubt as to their clear intent to commit a genocide. Arakchi also says that there was an urgent debate going on at the Human Rights Council in Geneva, and this is where he made these latest statements. Now, viewers, it's a big allegation coming in from Iranian side of committing a genocide. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arakchi now says there is clear intent on the part of US and Israel to commit a genocide. Colonel Bagga continues to stay with us on the broadcast. Colonel Bagga, coming back to you now. You say that Iran is also prepared for the attacks that would come in its way from US and Israel. It has fortified the Karg island as well. I want to ask you, in case Iran is also preparing on the ground for this possible invasion, how are we looking at the escalations? Now, where is the war headed in that case?
You see, the Iranians, they really well predicted before the war only. They knew what exactly is their survival line. And they know the importance of Strait of Hormuz, right? And that's the reason they, much before the war, they carried out some amount of naval exercises along with Chinese. We all are aware that Chinese and Russians are the strategist partners to Iran at this in present scenario. The whole world knows about it. And Iranians have given a very clear message to balance of the Gulf countries. Look, we don't have any problem with you people. You vacate, you tell the US to vacate those bases, whatever they have created in that. That is firstly. Secondly, if Iranians go into a deep war or escalate further, as far the ground attack is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, Iranians are, one thing, again, you need to understand, they are created a mosaic kind of a defense system within their own country. They don't require anyone's permission from the hierarchy. Their entire thing is decentralized, and they're very well prepared for it. And they have anticipated, rather they have worked on those contingencies, and they knew it, that in case US wants to dominate this region, they have to launch a ground war, because whatever right now, sending the aircrafts or the missiles, US has the plans have definitely stalled. Now it comes to the ground war. For that, Iranians are very well dug in, and the natural topography, or rather the terrain of that particular region is as such, they have got a tremendous advantage of defense potential, what we call it in a military language.
Right, Colonel Bagga, that's very interesting how you talked about Iran's model. They had learned their lessons from Iran-Iraq war, and they have been preparing for this for almost 3 decades now. And I'll come back to you for more on this, but this breaking developments coming to light at this point. Hezbollah has now claimed destroying over 100 Israeli tanks. Hezbollah is in fact releasing a video of drones striking Israeli tanks near the border. It's a claim made by Iranian media, which says about 100 Israeli tanks have now been destroyed in Lebanon in March. So it's in a span of over 25 days, about 100 Israeli tanks have been destroyed, as there's another front between Hezbollah and IDF that continues to operate in the north side of the country. Now, Colonel Bagga continues to stay with us on the broadcast. Colonel Bagga, I'll come back to you because there was a very interesting point that you raised about Iran's strategy. Now, we have seen IRGC preparing for this war for over 3 decades now. They built a decentralized system. Killing a one leader does not lead to the collapse of entire system. And Iran, certainly, its strategy of exhausting the enemy, it seems, has been successful so far. They have been using drones, which are low cost, but they're effective. They've been able to make, take out lethal targets. And it does seem that their strategy so far has been successful.
Yeah, Iran, if you see the past 10, 15 days, what was the requirement of a C-135 aircraft, that tanker, to refuel the one fighter of US Air Force in the midair. The reason was very simple, that at present, whatever the airfields or any military base is existing in Gulf, that is certain has suffered some amount of damage. So that is the one indicator that Iran in some form has really got a success as far investing or channelizing their opponents in some form. That is first. Second thing is, if US is banking on much on the Air Force earlier, that was their miscalculation. They thought that with some amount of airstrikes, they will be able to degrade Iranian internal system, which they were not able to achieve. Bringing more troops now and planning to launch a ground assault or the offensive is another indicator that is they are totally exhausted.
Right, sir.
And they are really, and you must have read it in past 2 days, they are also shifting some amount of funds to buy more missiles. So there is somewhere something is happening within US also, readjustment or whatever you call it, relocation of the troops. That is, again, only happens when Iranians have done their homework correctly, and they have done it. And they have shown it to the entire world.
Right, Colonel Rajiv Bagga joining us on the broadcast and sharing his inputs on this big story. And viewers, now slipping into a very short break. Coming up on the other side, even as government slashes excise duty, Indian markets still open in red. Meanwhile, rupee also falls to a record low at 94 against US dollar.
प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा हार्डकोर मसाला।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए
Trump's misguided war on Iran. Trump's military pose a strategic deception. Iran's strategy keeps America at bay. Debating tonight at 8 p.m.
Co-presenting by Zoho Business Software, trusted by 15 crore users. Co-powered by Greenply, हर जरूरत का reply.
Big relief to oil firms. Centre reduces excise duty on both diesel and petroleum. Retail prices still remain unchanged. Even as government slashes excise duty, Indian markets open in red. Meanwhile, rupee falls to a record low at 94 against a US dollar. Amid tensions with NATO allies, Donald Trump hails Prime Minister Modi, says Modi gets things done. Indian LPG vessel Jagwasan docks at Kandla port carrying over 42,000 metric tons of LPG. Pine gas carrying 45,000 metric tons of LPG expected to arrive at new Mangaluru port today. All right, viewers, are beginning with the developments we're getting from the war in West Asia. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz now says IDF Activity in Iran against security and military targets continues without interruption. We will continue to hunt the leaders and the commanders of terror regime and destroy its strategic capabilities. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I warned the Iranian terror regime to stop firing missiles at civilian population in Israel. But despite the warnings, the firing continues. Therefore, IDF strikes in Iran will also now escalate and expand to additional targets and areas that assist the regime in building and operating weapons against Israeli civilians. The defense minister also says they will pay a heavy price increasingly for their war crime. Now, that's a big warning coming in from the Israeli defense minister, who says that there were warnings issued to Iran to not target civilian areas in Israel, but they did not pay heed to those warnings. And now IDF here will be escalating its attacks all across Iranian landscape. All right, that's a big warning that's coming in from the Israeli side. We're looking at the climbing up of escalation in this battle. And now, viewers, a massive ruckus broke out in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly as NC leaders disrupted the proceedings of the House in a show of protest against the US and Israeli strikes on Iran. This was followed up by protests which were staged by BJP leaders who criticized the ruling dispensation for raising the prices of petrol and diesel and allegedly also obstructing the establishment of a national law university. Take a look at this report.
Chaos broke out in Jammu and Kashmir's Legislative Assembly. National Conference leaders entered the assembly carrying Iran's former supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei's picture, raising slogans in his support, waving posters, disrupting the budget session.
मैंने कॉल अटेंशन भी दिया है, मैंने एडजर्नमेंट मोशन भी दिया है। हम समझते हैं कि जिस तरीके से आयतुल्लाह सैयद अली खामेनेई साहब का कत्ल हुआ, जिस तरह उनको शहीद किया गया, किसी भी मुल्क का कोई भी हक नहीं बनता है किसी मुल्क के ऊपर हमला करना, और एक मजहबी लीडर को बे तरीके से जिस तरह मारा गया, वो हम उसकी निंदा करते हैं।
The protest over Iran war soon turned political. NC leaders raised slogans against Prime Minister Modi, prompting a response from the BJP leaders. The result, a full-blown scuffle broke out between Congress MLA Irfan Hafiz Lone and BJP MLA Yudhvir Sethi. The situation spiraled. Police had to intervene to restore order in the assembly. In view of the continuous disruption, the assembly was eventually adjourned. This was followed up by BJP legislators gheroing the assembly in protest.
मैंने उस दिन भी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस की थी। ये लोग अपना 2 रुपये इन्होंने पिछली बार भी बढ़ाया, 2 रुपये इस बार बढ़ा रहे हैं। करोड़ों रुपया ये लोग कमा रहे हैं, फिर भी NLU देते इनको तकलीफ है, फिर भी युवाओं को रोजगार नहीं मिल रहा, फिर भी जो सिलेंडर मुफ्त देने थे वो नहीं दे रहे, फिर भी बूढ़ियों को जो इन्होंने पेंशन देनी वो भी नहीं दे रहे। इसलिए सिर्फ खाने का काम है, बांटने का ये सरकार नहीं करती।
BJP leaders demanded for establishment of a national law university in Jammu. BJP leaders also protested against the hike in petrol and diesel prices by the state's government. This comes as Indian government slashed the excise duty on petrol and diesel for oil marketing companies, a big relief that will cushion the pressure on the end consumers.
Now, viewers, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says his government has made constructive contribution to the Iran war. Now, this comes after Donald Trump said that he was surprised by Australia's refusal to help the US secure the Strait of Hormuz. Now, while again lashing out at NATO allies for their inaction in this conflict. Take a look at this report.
I said very early on that I wasn't going to comment on all of his commentary. on a day-to-day basis. But I again reiterate that there is no request being made to Australia that has not been agreed to. President Trump is up to him to explain his comments, but of course I make the point as well that Australia wasn't consulted before this action was undertaken, and I respect that. That's a matter for the United States. What Australia is responsible for, and what I, as the Prime Minister of Australia, are responsible for, is Australia's response. And we've been constructive. We've provided the E-7 Wedgetail aircraft that is playing a critical role in support of the Gulf states who've been attacked by Iran unprovoked.
And now here's Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced the elimination of IRGC Navy Commander Ali Reza Tangrisi in a precision IDF strike, highlighting his role in blocking the Strait of Hormuz and the terrorist operations. Now, the Defense Minister Israel Katz also detailed the operation that neutralized Tangrisi and the top naval officials. Now, all of which leads to the big question, who is Tangrisi, a key figure in Iran's asymmetric warfare? Tangrisi led fast boat swarms and also anti-Western tactics in the Persian Gulf. Let's listen into this report to know more.
אנחנו ממשיכים לתקוף בעוצמה את המטרות של משטר הטרור האיראני. אמש חיסלנו את מפקד חיל הים של משמרות המהפכה. לאיש הזה יש הרבה דם על הידיים, ובנוסף הוא זה שהוביל את סגירת מצרי הורמוז. זוהי עוד אחת מהדוגמאות של שיתוף הפעולה בינינו לבין ידידינו ארצות הברית, במטרה משותפת להשיג את מטרות המלחמה.
הלילה סיכל צה"ל בפעולה מדויקת וקטלנית את מפקד חיל הים של משמרות המהפכה טנגסירי יחד עם בכירי פיקוד חיל הים. האיש היה אחראי הישיר על פעולת הטרור של מיקוש וחסימת מצרי הורמוז לשיט, פוצץ וסוכל.
Viewers are getting more developments from the war in West Asia. IDF has now released a statement giving details of the Iranian attacks. The statement now says a short while ago, IDF identified missiles launched from Iran towards the territory of Israel. Defensive systems were operating to intercept the threat. Now, it looks like that Iran is continuing with its attacks all across the Israeli territory, and IDF now giving out details of those attacks, saying that just a short while ago, there were several Iranian missiles which were headed towards its territory, and defense systems were also activated to intercept the threats coming in from Iranian missiles. We're certainly looking at more and more escalations on this front. Iran has now launched its 82nd wave of strikes, mostly hitting US and Israeli targets. And now IDF says that more and more Iranian missiles were seen coming towards the territory of Israel. And as a result, its defensive systems are activated to intercept the incoming threats. That's the latest statement coming in from IDF. All right, viewers, more breaking news coming in. And Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has denied accusations that Moscow is providing any intelligence support to Iran, while confirming ongoing military, tactical, technical, in fact, cooperation between the two nations, including the supply of certain defense equipment. In an interview, Lavrov says that the information about US military bases in the region is publicly available, adding that he was not surprised by Iran's actions and also criticized what he described as provocative rhetoric from US officials, calling instead for protecting the interests of all countries in the region. So here we have seen several reports claiming that Russia is providing intel support to Tehran to target US bases, but it seems the foreign minister now coming forward and putting an end to all of those rumors, saying that Russia is not providing any intel support to Iran in this conflict. Let's listen in to the foreign minister.
Мы действительно имеем с Ираном очень тесные отношения, в том числе у нас есть соглашение о военно-техническом сотрудничестве. Мы поставляли в Иран определенные виды продукции военного назначения, но мы не можем согласиться с обвинениями в том, что мы помогаем Ирану передачей разведданных. Координаты американских военных баз в регионе знают все. Это не скрывается, это открытая информация. И то, что Иран атакует эти военные базы, у меня лично не вызывает какого-то удивления. Когда руководящие члены администрации Соединенных Штатов с бравадой, с какой-то гордостью говорят о хладнокровных убийствах верховного лидера страны, других членов иранского руководства, конечно, это иначе как цинизмом трудно назвать. Поэтому мы выступаем за обеспечение интересов и Ирана, и всех стран региона.
All right, viewers, now shifting focus. Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis now says that no shortage of petrol and diesel in Maharashtra. Do not panic. Stock at this point of time. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis also says action will be taken against those spreading rumors of a lockdown. He also says that he is basically appealing to public not to believe in rumors regarding the supply of petrol and diesel. He says there's enough stock available. There's no shortage essentially at this point of time. He also says the central government's decision to reduce the excise duty on petrol and diesel by 10% is a welcome step, which will help curb the rise in fuel prices. There will be no lockdown imposed in the country, he reiterates, while saying that action will be taken against those spreading such rumors. Now, viewers, that's Maharashtra Chief Minister putting down the rumors regarding that a lockdown could be imposed in the country. He says, specifically in Maharashtra, there is no shortage of petrol. No petrol pumps are witnessing dryouts at this point. Enough stock of crude is available within the country. He also welcomes the step regarding the removal of excise duty on petrol and diesel by the central government, while also emphasizing that action will be taken against those who are fear-mongering, who are spreading the rumors that a potential lockdown could be imposed in the country. Now, viewers, the central government on Thursday cut excise duty on petrol and diesel for oil marketing companies. Now, the centre here slashed excise duty on petrol to about 3 rupees per litre. This is down from 13 rupees. And on diesel, it has cut down to about 0 from earlier 10 rupees per litre. Now, the move here aims to help oil marketing companies reduce their recoveries amid the ongoing conflict in Middle East, which has caused a strain to oil market due to the near closure of the Strait of Hormuz. However, viewers, there will be no change in the pump prices of petrol or diesel at this point. Basically, retail prices will still remain the same. Take a look at this report.
A day after Nayara Energy, India's largest private fuel retailer, hiked petrol prices by Rs 5.30 per litre and diesel by Rs 3 per litre, government has now stepped in to absorb the energy shock. The central government has announced duty cut on petrol and diesel, a move seen as a huge relief to oil firms struggling with the global energy crisis.
The centre has stepped in to cushion the impact of the rising crude oil prices globally by cutting the excise duty on petrol and diesel. The excise duty on petrol, which was earlier levelled at 13 rupees per litre, is now brought down to 3 rupees per litre, and the diesel, which was earlier levelled at 10 rupees per litre, is now brought down at 0 rupees per litre. Now, this step has not yet yielded any results for the consumers yet, which means that this change in price will not be directly impacting the consumers yet. The prices remain the same, but this is in simpler terms a step from the government to cushion and to absorb the shock which was caused to these oil marketing companies, be it Indian Oil, BPCL, HPCL, which were losing huge funds when the global prices of the crude oil was brought over $100 a barrel.
क्योंकि विदेश में मार्केट में दाम बढ़ रही है क्रूड का, उसके कारण पेट्रोल और डीजल का, एटीएफ का, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ये चाहा कि कंज्यूमर का प्राइस बढ़ना नहीं है। उसके कारण हम निर्णय लिए हैं कि ऑयल मार्केटिंग कंपनीज को सपोर्ट दें और जिससे वो ज़्यादा दाम में खरीदने वाली चीज़ों को सरकार उनको मदद करेगी, मगर जनता के ऊपर रेट बढ़ाना नहीं होना चाहिए।
The excise duty for petrol per litre has been reduced by 10 rupees and now stands at 3 rupees per litre, while for diesel the excise duty has been entirely waived off by the government. The duty cut is also a big relief for retail consumers. This as the government is bearing the cost of the crisis and oil firms will now be expected to keep the retail prices stable for consumers. The government also decisively quashed the rumours of a lockdown, saying there is no shortage of oil.
हमारे देश में गैस और ऑयल कितने कम प्रोडक्शन होते हैं और हम बाहर से निर्भर रखते हैं। आम जिंदगी में सबको गैस चाहिए, सबको पेट्रोल डीजल चाहिए, तो इसको किसी तरह से दाम ना बढ़े, नियंत्रण में रखे, इसके लिए इतना बड़ा फैसला लेना, वो भी पेट्रोल तब 3 रुपया एक्साइज ड्यूटी रख दिया, इतना कम आप कल्पना भी नहीं कर सकते हैं, और डीजल में 0 कर दिया।
Amid the ongoing war, another LPG tanker, Pine Gas, crossing the Strait of Hormuz, is set to dock in India. This as India secures itself against the energy crisis.
Now we are shifting focus to more developments we're getting from the war investigation. Our US Central Command has released a message saying that its forces will continue to eliminate Iranian regime's ability to project military power beyond its borders. We're looking at more and more attacks being conducted by Iran on Gulf countries, and US Central Command essentially responding to that we will continue to eliminate Iranian regime's ability to project its power beyond its borders. Now remember, this comes as Donald Trump here has announced a halt in strikes on energy sector of Iran. But despite that, we are certainly looking at more and more bombing by US Central Command on Iranian targets in terms of the launch pads, in terms of the storage units, the missile production units, all are being hit in Tehran. And we're looking at the recent video that's now been released by the US Central Command, also with a message saying that they will continue to eliminate the Iranian regime's ability to project military power beyond its borders. Now that's the video on your screen, released by Central Command. Now here's more developments coming to light. Iran now says about 120 cultural sites have been damaged in US-Israeli attacks. Iranian officials have now come out with a number saying that the US and Israeli strikes have hit at least 120 museums and historic sites all across the country. Now, the war began, there have been concerns raised over damage incurred to cultural heritage, and this time Ahmad Alawi, who's the head of Tehran City Council's Cultural Heritage Committee, he says that multiple sites all across Iran, they have been directly hit. He also puts out some numbers saying at least 120 museums and historical buildings have been attacked by US and Israeli strikes. These are located all across Iranian landscape, not just confined to one province. He also says that among other locations cited were Golistan Palace, Sadabad Palace, the Marble Palace, along with that Temur Tash House, also known as the War Museum. So these are some of the cultural sites which have been hit by the US and Israeli strikes as the war still continues. All right, viewers, we're now looking at Marco Rubio speaking with the Ukrainian foreign minister about Iran war concerns. The Ukrainian foreign minister, Andriy, also has now spoken to the US Secretary of State on the margins of the G7 foreign ministers meeting. It took place today, and amid the ongoing Russian support for Iran and the concerns that war in the Middle East could divert resources from Ukraine. Now, they spoke about the developments which are taking place in Middle East, and noting that Ukraine's position is that regime in Moscow and Tehran, they're working together to prolong the war. They both must face consolidated pressure. This is according to the post he shared on X, saying that Moscow is providing intelligence support to Iran about the locations and the movements of American troops, ships and aircraft, according to multiple people which are familiar with US intelligence reporting on this issue. All right, viewers, are now slipping into a short break. But on the other side, we tell you how are the markets reacting to the more developments coming in from West Asia, and how rupee has now fallen to a record low of 94 against the US dollar.
प्यास बुझाए ठंडक लाए सबको भाई जीरा सिम MDH का जलजीरा जीरा सिम
जीरा सिम असली रिफ्रेशिंग असली स्वाद असली मजा
MDH
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे केसरिया से मन जोगी
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा क्या स्वाद है। अरे मेरी राजा मसाला।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से।
और शाही पनीर मसाला। डिलीशियस, हेल्दी, एवरीडे।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। इस युद्ध के दुष्प्रभाव लंबे समय तक रहने की प्रबल आशंका है, लेकिन मैं देशवासियों को भरोसा देता हूं, सरकार सतर्क है, तत्पर है और पूरी गंभीरता से रणनीति बना रही है, हर निर्णय ले रही है। देश की जनता का हित,
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
सैंडविच, लस्सी और छाछ और
हर घूंट में चमकी चाट। अब बताओ, स्वाद आया? आया।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चंकी चाट।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता, उबालो, मिलाओ और खाओ।
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है, सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन।
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Welcome to Republic. I'm Ridhum and our top focus is going to be on the ground realities that suggest continued volatility at a time when there is a 5-day then a 10-day pause by Donald Trump. One really has to see whether this is a pause, a ceasefire or just escalation of the volatility on the ground. First a look at our top headlines. It's a big relief to oil firms in India. The central government reduces excise duty on both diesel and petroleum. Retail prices remain unchanged. Even as government slashes the excise duty, Indian markets open in red. Meanwhile, rupee also falls to a record low at 94 against US dollar.
Amid tensions with NATO allies, Trump hails Prime Minister Modi, says Modi gets things done. Indian LPG vessel Jag Vasant docks at Kandla port that's carrying 42,000 metric tons of LPG. Pine gas carrying 45,000 metric tons of LPG expected to arrive at New Mangalore port today. It doesn't seem that the ceasefire has possibly worked. We're getting breaking news that there's huge fire that has broke out at Kuwait's Mubarak port that's following a missile strike, and this is the big breaking news. It seems Iran is going to continue. On 27th today in Kuwait, there was a targeted, coordinated attack involving drones and cruise missiles at dawn. The strike occurred amidst a broader escalation of regional conflict, and it's resulted in material damage to the port's infrastructure. This is clearly going with what Iran has said. They're not going to be backing down. It's a dual threat strike. You can see the pictures on your screen, viewers. It's hostile drones and cruise missiles that have been used. And there have been, fortunately, no human casualties. The impact is that the infrastructure at the port has sustained material damage. This is going with what Iran is saying. They will continue to damage every ally's main infrastructural abilities if US does not buckle down. Remember, authorities have immediately activated and sent an emergency response protocol to secure the strike. This is a broader escalation that we are seeing in Kuwait from Iran. Earlier strikes include the Shuwaik port. They also include Kuwait's international airport earlier, where drone strikes had targeted the fuel storage tanks. And now we are seeing fire break out at Kuwait's port, at Mubarak port, following the missile strikes. Also earlier, the Abdullah port refinery had been targeted. They have earlier denied reports, but now it's very clear that the regional flight suspensions and the regional tensions have escalated once more as we're seeing a new attack from Iran. The Indian government today has executed a significant reduction in the federal excise duties on motor fuels, a move that's aimed to absorb the shock of global crude price hitting $122 a barrel without passing the burden to the public. In a late-night notification, the Finance Ministry reduced the special additional excise duty on petrol to 3 rupees per litre from 13 rupees, while the duty on diesel was also slashed to 0 from the previous 10 rupees. The combined rupees 10 per litre reduction in the largest fiscal intervention in the energy sector this year. Despite the deep tax cuts, retail prices at the pump are expected to remain unchanged. Market analysts have also pointed out the reduction intended to fill a massive under-recovery gap for state-run OMCs rather than provide a direct discount to consumers.
Well, I think the impact of this, as far as the consumers are concerned, as the people who use petrol and diesel are concerned, this is a step to neutralize the impact. Because when the petrol diesel prices, or shall I say when the crude oil prices, just before the war, they were about $60 to $70. They were hovering between $60 to $70, 60, 65, 70. Just before the war, it was around 70. And then suddenly shot up to 120, came down to 97, 98, again went up to 110. Again went up and down. So it's been moving between 100 and 120 ever since then, which means the procurement cost for the oil marketing companies, I like to name 3 of them: Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum, and Hindustan Petroleum. Of course, there are a couple of other private players as well. So the cost went up for them. It was also being said that when the crude oil prices were $60, $70, these oil marketing companies, OMCs as we call them, they had accumulated profits of about 25,000 odd crores because the petrol diesel was being sold at a slightly elevated price, whereas their input cost was lower. So they accumulated this profit. I think in the last 3 to 4 weeks of the war, this profit may have eroded. and they were slipping into the red. This is very important because all the reserves that they had created, they were gradually slipping away because the input cost had gone up from $70 or $65 right up to $120. So they were about to bleed. And I think obviously the government must have taken cognizance of that. And the government decided to cushion this. That, okay, all right, we will reduce the excise on petrol and diesel. We'll make it 0 for one and 3 rupees for the other. And you don't increase the price. So the impact of this on the consumers would be, as far as your petrol diesel price, listed price, would be 0, maybe 0. Because if this had not happened, that is, if the excise was not cut back, there would have been a big possibility that the OMCs anytime soon would have passed on this increase to the consumers. So we should have been, I say, prepared, if this has not happened, to pay higher petrol diesel prices, which would have been a very, very unpopulist move as well, because inflation is already on the rise. Unpopulist, when I say I'm speaking from a political angle, because there are elections in 4 states. So just not the right time to pass on this burden to people who would not have felt very happy, and the elections were in states. So I think this is an attempt to cushion, and this is an attempt to make sure that the increased international crude prices do not impact a common man's household budget, do not have a cascading and rippling effect, because normally diesel prices, as it is used for freight, the impact is passed on to practically everything that one uses. So in an effort to neutralize the price, this has been done. So now the OMCs will be able to increase the price. However, the consumers may not feel the increase of price. Of course, there is some mathematics and calculations behind this, but I'm sure the calculations have been done accordingly. The consumers may either have a very, very minimal impact, or not a noticeable impact, or a no impact going forward, at least for the time being. Well, there are 2 problems on that front. One, of course, is the supply problem. That is the supply crisis, which seemingly has been eased because Iran has named India amongst those 5 countries which are friends, which means Indian ships may be allowed to pass through Strait of Hormuz. So from the supply end, we may be finding things easing out in the days to come. The queues which you're witnessing outside the LPG distribution agencies may after all disappear. I mean, the queues are, I would say, man-made to a large extent, because hoarders in the black marketeers made hay when the sun was shining. When the whole news was moving around, they tried to exploit the situation. But the bigger problem is the pricing. The pricing comes, in terms of that. Then obviously there's going to be pressure on the bottom lines, and people are going to be impacted. But 60% of the gas is being imported, so I think one should be prepared, to face some kind of constraints in that front. You will find that people must look for alternates. You must look for electric alternates. You must look for conserving the resources. You should not be going over the board in terms of booking your second cylinder when you already have the cylinder. Try and cook once a day or something. So I think all those measures combined to, so a little bit of effort from the government by way of increased production, by way of diversifying the resources, and a little bit of effort, I would say, from people should be able to sail us through this crisis. But all said and done, I would say the situation is very evolving. The situation is very, very concurrent, and we should wait for a while, because there are so many things happening in the war: statements, counter statements, new deadlines, extended deadlines, threats here and there. So the situation is very, very fluid as of now. I think we just need to keep a close watch. But as we stand today, I really don't see any problem.
You coming for? And now we're getting news from the US Central Command. The US forces, they say, continue to eliminate the Iranian regime's ability to project military power beyond its control. This is the news coming in from US a few days after it says there's going to be a pause on hostilities. Now the US Central Command forces are saying we are continuing to eliminate the Iranian regime's ability. Remember, this is also coming after they've already got intelligence, which is in the public domain, that in fact the regime remains intact. So we don't understand what the US forces are really speaking about when they say that in coordination with Israel, we have continued to intensify the direct military actions designed to dismantle Iran's regional powers projection, including strikes on capabilities. Now they're saying that this is the news coming in that US Central Command intensifies operations against Iran. They say we've conducted 10,000 strikes during Operation Epic Fury to signify the degrading of the Iranian regime. Notice the words very carefully that have been used in this particular social media post by the US Central Command. We continue to try and eliminate Iran's regime's ability to project military power beyond its borders. The first thing that we get is that their own internal US sources have told them that there is the regime's remaining intact. There's more breaking news coming in. Getting more breaking news coming in that Hezbollah claims destroying 100 Israeli tanks. The Hezbollah releases a video of the drone striking Israeli tanks. Iranian media has said 100 Israeli tanks have been destroyed in Lebanon in March. It's both the sides trying to posture that they're able to fight this and they're able to do this. They earlier said 60 plus strikes had disseminated Iranian missiles, and now we're being told 100 Israeli tanks have been destroyed. This is the Merkava tanks that Hezbollah and Iran is claiming about during the intensified clashes in southern Lebanon. They're saying that a broader escalation has taken place, and now Hezbollah is saying that there is a coordinated missile and drone strike over a 48-hour period. They're also saying that there's been an ambush of the Israelis, and that's what Hezbollah and Iran are now claiming as a victory. It's common war practice. Both the sides are stating that we are winning. I'm getting you more breaking news on this story as Hezbollah is claiming the destruction of nearly 100 Israeli Merkava tanks during the intensified clashes that have taken place in southern Lebanon. These claims are part of a broader escalation in this war, and some are also calling it a separate war against Hezbollah now in Lebanon war, which began following the India-US strikes earlier. A massive ruckus broke out in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly as NC leaders disrupted the proceedings of the House in a show of protest against the US and Israel strikes on Iran. It was followed by the protest staged by the BJP leaders who criticized the ruling dispensation for raising the prices of petrol and diesel and allegedly obstructing the establishment of a national law university.
Chaos broke out in Jammu and Kashmir's Legislative Assembly. National Conference leaders entered the assembly carrying Iran's former supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei's picture, raising slogans in his support, waving posters, disrupting the budget session.
मैंने कॉल अटेंशन भी दिया है, मैंने एडजर्नमेंट मोशन भी दिया है। हम समझते हैं कि जिस तरीके से आयतुल्लाह सैयद अली खामेनेई साहब का कत्ल हुआ, जिस तरह उनको शहीद किया गया, किसी भी मुल्क का कोई भी हक नहीं बनता है किसी मुल्क के ऊपर हमला करना, और एक मजहबी लीडर को बे तरीके से जिस तरह मारा गया, वो हम उसकी निंदा करते हैं।
The protest over Iran war soon turned political. NC leaders raised slogans against Prime Minister Modi, prompting a response from the BJP leaders. The result, a full-blown scuffle broke out between Congress MLA Irfan Hafiz Lone and BJP MLA Yudhvir Sethi. The situation spiraled. Police had to intervene to restore order in the assembly. In view of the continuous disruption, the assembly was eventually adjourned. This was followed up by BJP legislators gheroing the assembly in protest.
मैंने उस दिन भी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस की थी। ये लोग अपना 2 रुपये इन्होंने पिछली बार भी बढ़ाया, 2 रुपये इस बार बढ़ा रहे हैं। करोड़ों रुपया ये लोग कमा रहे हैं, फिर भी NLU देते इनको तकलीफ है, फिर भी युवाओं को रोजगार नहीं मिल रहा, फिर भी जो सिलेंडर मुफ्त देने थे वो नहीं दे रहे, फिर भी बूढ़ियों को जो इन्होंने पेंशन देनी वो भी नहीं दे रहे। इसलिए सिर्फ खाने का काम है, बांटने का ये सरकार नहीं करती।
BJP leaders demanded for establishment of a national law university in Jammu. BJP leaders also protested against the hike in petrol and diesel prices by the state's government. This comes as Indian government slashed the excise duty on petrol and diesel for oil marketing companies. A big relief that will cushion the pressure on the end consumers.
We're getting breaking news right now. US-Israel coalition forces expending 11,294 munitions in the first 16 days of the conflict at a cost of approximately $26 billion. The analysis by the UK-based institute is claiming US and Israel are running out of interceptors. After an initial salvo of 5,000 munitions in the first 96 hours, the conflict is settled into a grinding trial of attrition. I'm also going to try and make sense of this entire West Asian war. Which side is going to blink? I'm joined by retired Major General Shashi Asthana. Major General Shashi Asthana, the big question really here going to be not about interceptors, but about the volatility that's increasing in this war. On the one side, we have Trump saying twice that I've given some mediation through Pakistan. I've tried to do mediation directly or indirectly with the Iranian forces, but nothing is really yielding when Iran is showing them thumbs down as saying we've not started any negotiation. Which side do you think is going to blink first? It's obvious there's going to be a global recession if this war continues.
I think it is quite obvious that Americans are blinking first in a manner that if you see the demands of Americans in the beginning of the war, initially Trump wanted unconditional surrender. From there, coming down to negotiations and coming down to the nuclear part, and also having a regime and not asking for regime change is a come down. At the same time, if you see the pattern of the Iranians' demand, their demands, what were there before the war, they have hardened much more by addition of so many things, like in total control of Strait of Hormuz by them. That was not there when they started the war. So you can see with the stance of both sides that Iranians seem to have an upper hand. And this upper hand is basically, if you come to think of it, as analysts, we analyze what was their aim and what did they achieve. The Americans' aim was regime change. It has not been achieved. They have achieved a fair amount of degradation of Iranis, but that is a tactical gain. Strategically, that doesn't add up for the simple reason because it gives advantage Russia, advantage China, as America gets weaker. So that's one part of it. Similarly, as far as Iranis are concerned, their aim is very clear. They have to survive, number one, and number two, impose cost on Trump. Both these things are happening. So when you see the outcome from the point of view of in an asymmetric war, it's an asymmetric war because the combat power of USA and Israel is much more than Iran. But at the same time, Iran has certain advantages in terms of combat with like geographical advantage. The way they have used their geography in a manner that they have been able to dictate terms in Strait of Hormuz, which has impacted America as well as the rest of the world. So that's how I think, if you analyze all this, I think Iranis are having a better say as far as the negotiations are concerned, or as far as the future trajectory of war is concerned for the time being.
Now, the big question is, yes, America is blinking, but we all know when it comes to military expertise, America does not have competition. Iran knows this, but I think trying to keep in touch with the fact that they want to defend their nation, they're going in, continuing even stronger. How do you look at the Gulf countries? Today they sent out a proper diktat, maybe I would say, to the Gulf countries that if you try and retaliate to us, especially to the UAE, we will wipe out all the infrastructure that's currently there.
See, UAE and all the Gulf countries, they are part of collateral damage. Let's not forget that they are the ones who have given bases to United States. And United States is the aggressor. United States and Israel, they are the aggressor. So therefore, given the kind of situation, Iran certainly has to respond. Now, how does Iran respond? They have to defend themselves. How do they do it? they can't, their missiles cannot reach USA. So therefore, they are going to strike the bases. Now, once the bases were struck, all these Americans, they moved into townships. Now, once they have entered the townships and gone into the civilian areas, especially in the hotels, obviously then Iran has targeted that as well. Iran has also been repeatedly saying that it's not my war with you. The question is that if an attack comes to me, to my country, from your soil, then I will have to respond in defense. So that is what is happening. Now, this I think the Gulf countries also understand, but then the kind of damages which they are suffering are getting beyond the point. So that is why perhaps they are now giving signals to Iran that if you don't stop this, then we will also have to enter the war, leaving out the Muslim Brotherhood and all other compulsions, which so far we were understanding, which you have. So I think there is a problem, and there is another problem regarding Saudi Arabia and some of the countries. They feel that unchanged regime and a radical regime in Iran still remaining in power is going to be very dangerous for them in times to come. Now, if USA degrades it even more, it is beneficial to them. So this is the kind of scenario which we are dealing with, in that maybe that not all Gulf countries, but some Gulf countries may start helping the Americans should the war prolong.
All right. Thank you, Major General Shashi Asthana, for giving us that analysis. This is a top focus we're going to continue tracking to get a sense of what lies ahead for West Asia. Viewers, the other top focus, Indian defense sector is eyeing a major rehaul aimed at modernizing and better equipping the tri-services. Defense Acquisition Council, chaired by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, is catalyzing the procurement and revival of the revamp. That is, should be 85% of the indigenous manufacturers, 193 contracts and over 2 lakh crore rupees in what now becomes the most significant defense deal for the Indian armed forces.
India is all set to revamp its military capabilities. A record-breaking shift towards indigenous manufacturing aims to modernize the tri-services. For the Indian Air Force, at the helm of the deal is a massive contract for 114 multi-role Rafale fighter jets. Along with this, 60 medium transport aircraft, with major contenders being US's Lockheed Martin, Brazilian Embraer and Airbus. In the procurement priorities is also the S-400 air defense systems, one of the oldest layered air defense mechanisms with India. The Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter fleet is also to be boosted with specialized engines from the HAL worth over 26,000 crore rupees. Additional indigenous airborne early warning systems, also called the AWACS, are scheduled for procurement conclusions by the end of this year. For the Indian Army, 90 LCH Prachand helicopters and over 300 indigenous advanced towed artillery guns to equip 15 regiments. An additional unit of the K9 Vajra howitzers and 10,000 crore rupees worth Pinaka rocket systems are to be inducted. The Indian Navy is set to get the BrahMos cruise missile. A landmark 20,506 crore rupee deal has been signed to equip frontline warships with the world's fastest cruise missiles. The Still vertical launch missiles and also advanced light helicopters along with Sea Guardian drones are also on the cards for the Navy.
All right, the Iran war of the United States is having its impact around the world, and down under in Australia, it has caused some consternation. The comments that President Trump made about the allies not participating, that's Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister, taking a dig on President Trump.
I said very early on that I wasn't going to comment on all of his commentary. on a day-to-day basis. But I again reiterate that there is no request being made to Australia that has not been agreed to. President Trump is up to him to explain his comments, but of course I make the point as well that Australia wasn't consulted before this action was undertaken, and I respect that. That's a matter for the United States. What Australia is responsible for, and what I, as the Prime Minister of Australia, are responsible for, is Australia's response. And we've been constructive. We've provided the E-7 Wedgetail aircraft that is playing a critical role in support of the Gulf states who've been attacked by Iran unprovoked.
All right, the government has made a proactive move of cutting down on excise duties so that the oil marketing companies can cushion the hit they are taking because of the rise in petroleum prices, the crude prices that are happening around the world, and of course in India also. The prices at the pump remain same.
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
आलू चाट या फ्रूट चाट,
स्वाद बनाए चमकी चाट।
क्या बात है? स्वादिष्ट पकोड़े और फरसान, अरे चमकी चाट है इसकी जान।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरे राजा, मसाला।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। इस युद्ध के दुष्प्रभाव लंबे समय तक रहने की प्रबल आशंका है, लेकिन मैं देशवासियों को भरोसा देता हूं, सरकार सतर्क है, तत्पर है और पूरी गंभीरता से रणनीति बना रही है, हर निर्णय ले रही है। देश की जनता का हित,
This weekend, on the 6th edition of the Nationalist Collective, we bring to you voices that define the spirit of Bharat, from powerful perspectives in politics to inspiring stories of women leading nation building. From the unmatched courage of our armed forces to the lived experiences of Kargil veterans. This is a celebration of nationalism, sacrifice, and the idea of India that unites us all. Don't miss these powerful conversations that echo the heartbeat of the nation. Watch the 6th edition of the Nationalist Collective this weekend only on Republic TV. Let's begin with the headlines. Big relief to oil firms. Centre reduces excise duty on both diesel and petrol. Retail prices remain unchanged. Even as the government slashes excise duty, Indian markets open in the red, close in the red. Meanwhile, rupee also falls to a record low, breaches the 94 mark against the US dollar. Amid tensions with NATO allies, Trump hails PM Modi, says the Prime Minister gets things done. Indian LPG vessel Jagwasant docks at Kandla port in Gujarat, carrying over 42,000 metric tons of LPG. Another vessel, Pine Gas, carrying 45,000 metric tons of LPG, expected to arrive at the New Mangalore port later in the day. All right, beginning with a breaking, this live in breaking at 5:30 p.m. today. That's Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, had a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and it's being described as a difficult call where the two leaders discussed the West Asia situation, and it seems that Vance told Netanyahu that Israeli assessments for toppling the Iranian regime were not realistic enough, saying you were too optimistic in your assessments regarding the overthrow of the regime in Iran. It's clear that a breach is emerging between the allies in the Iran war. The United States communicating through Vice President J.D. Vance to Prime Minister Netanyahu that did you take us for a ride? Maybe in different words. But that's what J.D. Vance seems to have said, according to these reports to Netanyahu, that the suggestion from the Israelis that Iran is ripe for regime change with the people ready to come out in revolt does not seem to be a true assessment. We'll get Niranjan live just in a bit on this, but this is a significant development. If it has happened, this means that effectively we are seeing the war, which had become directionless within 4 days of starting, is now making United States look as if it was taken for a ride by Israel. If that is the case, then of course you are looking at the winding down of the war very soon. You are looking at Trump carrying out the ceasefire on his own. We have, in fact, Niranjan Narayan-Swamy, our executive editor, joining us from the newsroom for more on this. Niranjan, that seems like damning indictment of Israeli strategy by the Americans, and it cannot get bigger than this, which means we are looking at the possibility of the war winding down soon.
Well, Abhishek, we've been talking about it in the newsroom, discussing it in different discussions and debates over the last few days and weeks. I think you go by the signs in the last few days, statements that are being made, indications from both Israel and America, and it appears that they have miscalculated. Miscalculated they did, and we've been talking about it. They did, because they didn't expect the Iranian response. But look at what has happened on the ground. You and I were just talking about how, and we will talk about it in more detail at 9 p.m. tonight, when US has run out of interceptors, Israel has run out of interceptors, US is running out of not just interceptors but key missiles like Tomahawk. They say, some reports suggest, these are reports from the Western media, think tanks, institutes that say that it will take up to 5 years to a decade to try and even manufacture and replenish these stocks of missiles, key missiles that have been used in the last almost 1 month. 12,000 missiles, Abhishek, we are told that the US-Israel coalition used. They've run out of missiles, they're running out of interceptors, and they're running out of forces. You saw what the Chief of Staff said in Israel, Abhishek. The Chief of Staff in Israel went on record while addressing the Security Council, said that it is such a dire situation that they're fighting wars on many fronts, that they have, a depleted force, and they don't have enough people. They're saying that they can't even call the reservists. There is a war on the strategy and the law passed in Israel to bring in the reservists, and the opposition in Israel is up in arms. You heard from Yair Lapid, the former prime minister and also the primary opposition leader in Israel, slamming Netanyahu And then you go back to what Trump has said in the last few days, saying that it's, it was Pete Hegseth who convinced him that he had to go to war. And you hear comments like the Zionist lobby forced Trump and, sort of pushed him to go to war with Iran. And you try and put two and two together, Abhishek. So far, it is a huge disaster for America and Israel. They've run out of ideas. They started this war. They claimed their objectives were 4, but those objectives have kept changing over the last couple of months. And I think it all boils down to, what exactly is happening. And J.D. Vance, the U.S. media has been reporting these are reporters, these are analysts.
And this is
sorry, Abhishek, yes. I missed you there.
Okay, yeah, Niranjan, that's a significant news point coming out of the United States. These are media reports from the US. Remember earlier we had the Israeli general, the vice chief of staff, I believe, suggesting clearly that Israel is running out of the ammo and the will to really fight because the soldiers are really stretched, and that you need to dip into the reserves and you need to call them from reserves and to active duty. And now you have had reports of how the war machine is stretched, that the Tomahawks are spent, and that now it seems that Americans are having doubts about whether Israelis gave them true picture. Okay, Niranjan, I believe there is a weekly press briefing of the Minister of External Affairs going on at the Jawal.
What are the dynamics in the market? And 3, what is the global situation now? So these 3 issues or conditions are vital for us to take our decisions in regard to sourcing, and it continues to be the case. As far as specific issues where we are buying our oil from, X country, Y country, on those I think it's better that you take your question to the Ministry of Petroleum, because they'll be in a better position to answer. Siddhant, your question on the tweet that you mentioned. We are all aware of the terrible atrocities that was committed by Pakistan during Operation Searchlight in 1971. The genocide involved systematic and targeted killing of millions of Bangladeshi people, innocent people, and mass sexual violence against women. It also forced millions of Bangladeshi people out of their country. They came to India as refugees. These atrocities, needless to say, it shook the conscience of the world at large. Pakistan, however, remains in denial to this very day of its crimes. We support Bangladesh in its desire for justice. 1971 पे जो ऑपरेशन सर्चलाइट पाकिस्तान द्वारा उस समय जो चलाया गया था, उसमें किस प्रकार का वहाँ पर बांग्लादेश में नरसंहार हुआ, उसके बारे में सभी लोग अवगत हैं। इस नरसंहार में एक सुयोजित तरीके से लाखों लोगों की जानें गई, उनको मारा गया, उनके मौत के घाट से उतारा गया। उसके अलावा औरतों के साथ, और जिनको वहाँ वीरांगना कहा जाता है, उनके खिलाफ अलग अलग तरीके के वायलेंस हुए, क्राइम्स हुए, और साथ ही साथ जो कि एक प्रकार का दहशत था उस समय उस देश में, लाखों लोग अपने देश छोड़कर, बांग्लादेशी नागरिक छोड़कर हमारे यहाँ आए शरणार्थी के रूप में। इससे पूरा दुनिया का अंतरात्मा में बहुत एक झकझोर दिया, और अभी तक इन सभी क्राइम्स को लेके, वायलेंस को लेके, नरसंहार को लेके पाकिस्तान एक डिनायल मोड में रहता है। हमारी तरफ से हम बांग्लादेश को सपोर्ट करते हैं कि उनकी जो ये न्याय मांगने की और न्याय मिलने की जो उनकी चाह है, उसके लिए।
Okay, big development on India's defense front. The Defense Acquisition Council that met just a while back has cleared purchases worth 2.5 lakh crore rupees, almost 2.5 lakh crore rupees there, and these are major ones. It includes S-400, it includes defense tracked system, piercing tank ammo, this includes the Dhanush gun system, this includes the runway aerial surveillance system, this includes the IAF to get more S-400s, 5 more S-400s, and that's a big one. That alone must be about $5-6 billion. The committee chaired by the Defense Minister, Rajnath Singh, deliberated for more than a couple of hours. Remember, the proposals come in and they have been vetted earlier. The DAC approves them, and then the process of purchase. And it's a long-drawn process from here on. Still in the financial year, we have seen acceptance of necessity for 55 proposals amounting to rupees 6.73, almost 7 lakh crore rupees. And this was earlier, and now 2.5 lakh crore rupees. That's about 9.5-10 lakh crore rupees. That's a huge sum of money of purchases for defense. Let's go to Shawan for more details on what this really means. Shawan, this seems like a big proposal being cleared by the Defense Acquisition Council, includes S-400s, 5 of them, I believe. What more can you share about the scope and the specifics of this clearance of the proposal by the DAC today? How much of it is going to IAF? How much of it is going to our Navy? How much of it is going to Indian Army? And what's going to be the deadline like by the time these purchases materialize?
Well, in fact, the latest now coming in is of about 503 contracts. Now, that is roughly about 2 lakh crore rupees. And if you look at the bifurcation that has basically come in a short while back, this is essentially to do with more of the air defense systems. Now, I've just got a few more details coming in terms of what are we to expect in terms of what the Air Force basically gets. First is with regards to the air defense tracked system, which is basically the real-time air defense control and report. The second is something that has been largely spoken about in the last several months, particularly post-Operation Sindoor. This is with regards to the armored piercing tank ammunition. This is basically rather the anti-tank lethality that you're basically looking at. Then you also have the Dhanush artillery gun system that is essentially for the Indian Army. That's the longer range, higher accuracy, firepower. That there too, you have another contract that has basically been signed. As far as the Air Force is concerned, this is what we are being told. It's the medium transport aircraft. That's the replacement of the AN-32 as well as the IL-76 fleet. S-400 you've already spoken about, given the fact that there are more contracts that are likely to be signed in the days to come, particularly as far as S-400 is concerned. They're essentially looking at a 6-month time period right now in terms of the delivery to come in. In the last 4 months itself, we are looking at the DAC coming up with the second such large bonanza, signed contracts that is basically taking place. Now, this time, it is not just limited to the Indian Air Force, Army as well as the Navy, but also the Indian Coast Guard actually gets a share of the pie. And in fact, we are being told that the Indian Coast Guard has been assigned the heavy-duty air cushion vehicles, coastal patrol, as well as the SAR logistics support. So the latest now coming in is roughly about 503 contracts and within a time frame of roughly about 6 months.
All right, roughly about 6 months, and then there would be acceptance of necessity, and that has happened, and then the process, I believe, takes anything between 6 months to maybe a year and a half, but that's a big one, Shawan, and that really shows the kind of resolve with which the defense establishment going about beefing up the war machine, possibly looking at Operation Sindoor 2.0. Thank you so much for joining us as we go on to the next breaking development coming in, and that's back to the war, and we have more statements and reactions. France's Minister of the Armed Forces, Catherine Vautrin, has said the ongoing Middle East conflict, particularly the US-Israeli war with Iran and tensions around the Strait of Hormuz, is not our war, and it's not for Paris, stressing that France is not a party to the fighting and will not engage offensively in the conflict. We are seeing a hardening of positions there in Europe. G7 foreign ministers meeting is taking place in France, and this is a statement by the French defense minister comes on the sidelines of that meeting, which means there is signaling, a strong signaling by Europe that irrespective of the kind of language that's been used by President Trump, the kind of hectoring and haranguing of Europe that's been done by President Trump, the kind of name-calling that has been done by President Trump, Europe is not going to buckle down and back off on its position, which is that it's not their war, they are not getting in, and for whatever cajoling they are seeing from the American side, it's for Americans to handle because they started the war without consulting them. We had similar statement coming in from Anthony Albanese of Australia, now French Defense Minister, chiming in. All right, moving on to the next breaking. Okay, we have a statement from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard which says that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And that's a bit of a contradiction there because yesterday we had the Iranian Foreign Minister Sayyid Abbas Araghchi maintain that the Strait of Hormuz was open to friendly countries, not to the enemy countries. But IRGC seems to be suggesting that it's shut for everyone and nobody without permission can pass, which means that, okay, permission can be given, but IRGC would decide who gets to pass through the narrow waterway. Not definitely the Americans, for sure not the Israelis, and all ships that are coming in from those countries which are providing safe harbor and basis for the Americans to carry out their strikes. That seems to be the condition. But the point is, what was Trump talking about when he said 10 oil tankers, oil and gas tankers have been gifted by Iran, 8 of them flagged Pakistani, for the Americans. So where did the ships land ultimately is the question that we should be looking at. Okay, moving on. Okay, fair enough. The central government moved in a proactive move earlier in the day to cut excise, central excise on both petrol and diesel at the pump, and that's going to go to the oil marketing companies so that they can be cushioned against the kind of losses they have been underwriting because of the increase in crude prices. We have details in this package.
A day after Nayara Energy, India's largest private fuel retailer, hiked petrol prices by Rs 5.30 per litre and diesel by Rs 3 per litre, government has now stepped in to absorb the energy shock. The central government has announced duty cut on petrol and diesel, a move seen as a huge relief to oil firms struggling with the global energy crisis.
The centre has stepped in to cushion the impact of the rising crude oil prices globally by cutting the excise duty on petrol and diesel. The excise duty on petrol, which was earlier levelled at 13 rupees per litre, is now brought down to 3 rupees per litre, and the diesel, which was earlier levelled at 10 rupees per litre, is now brought down at 0 rupees per litre. Now, this step has not yet yielded any results for the consumers yet, which means that this change in price will not be directly impacting the consumers yet. The prices remain the same, but this is in simpler terms a step from the government to cushion and to absorb the shock which was caused to these oil marketing companies, be it Indian Oil, BPCL, HPCL, which were losing huge funds when the global prices of the crude oil was brought over $100 a barrel.
क्योंकि विदेश में मार्केट में दाम बढ़ रही है क्रूड का, उसके कारण
हर 1 लीटर डीजल के लिए, सो उनके लिए ये बेनिफिट नहीं है। उसका उनके ऊपर जो शॉक हो रहा है विदेश में प्राइस बढ़ाने के कारण, उस शॉक को सरकार ले रही है, जिससे जनता के ऊपर वो रेट बढ़ना नहीं होगा।
मैम, पर कई जो बीजेपी नॉन शासित राज्य जैसे कि उमर अब्दुल्ला ने भी तारीफ की है केंद्र सरकार की, एक बड़ी राहत दी है। कई विपक्षी सांसदों ने भी कहा है कि सरकार ने एक अच्छा फैसला लिया, पर कुछ लोग जो है वो कह रहे हैं कि नहीं, सरकार ने अच्छा फैसला लिया।
दिस इज ऑल फॉर द पॉलिटिकल गेन बिकॉज़ द इलेक्शंस आर
देयर इज अ इलेक्शन इन 5 states, so this is a political move by the government. How do you see that now?
Just shows how petty they can become. इससे नीचापन दिखाने के लिए मुझे कुछ और रास्ता दिखता नहीं है। नीचे आप होना चाहते हो तो इसी रास्ते पर होएंगे, इसीलिए ये से बयान आ रहा है। जनता का राहत दिलाने वाले बात में भी राजनीति, शर्मनाक बात है।
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Finance Minister there coming in and reacting to the position and the kind of position they have taken on the government's handling of the crisis. The Finance Minister, remember, has also today thanked the Parliament and the people for passage of the finance bill, which is the budget. Remember, this is the budget session. The budget was passed last evening completely and all process done. Okay, going to the next breaking, and we're going back to Iran. And a statement has come in from the Iranian side, which says that about 120 cultural sites have been damaged in this war launched by US, Israel jointly against Iran. And officials say the United States and the strikes carried out by them have hit at least 120 museums and historic sites, including some which are UNESCO designated World Heritage Sites. And this has raised concerns about the damage to the collective civilizational heritage. Ahmad Alawi, head of Tehran City Council's Cultural Heritage Committee, has said multiple sites have been directly hit, and the number is put at 120 by the Iranians. Among the locations cited that have been hit include Gulistan Palace, Sadabad Palace, the Marble Palace, and the Temurtash House, all known as war museums. Even as we run these pictures of the war, what is significant is the kind of loss of civilizational heritage that's happened in Iran war launched by, being carried out by Israel and the United States, even as they are running out of ammunition, running out of war machine. The fact remains a lot of damage has already been done. All right, this weekend, friends, on the 6th edition of the Nationalist Collective, we bring you the voices that define the spirit of Bharat, from powerful perspectives in politics to inspiring stories of women leading nation building. From the unmatched courage of our armed forces to the lived experiences of Kargil veterans. This is a celebration of nationalism, sacrifice, and the idea of India that unites us all. Don't miss these powerful conversations that echo the heartbeat of the nation. Do watch the 6th edition of Nationalist Collective this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, only on Republic TV. With that, we slip in a short break. Coming up on the other side, more on what's happening in the theater of war in the Middle East.
प्यास बुझाए ठंडक लाए सबको भाई जीरा सिर्फ MDH का जल जीरा जीरा सिर्फ
जीरा सिर्फ असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा।
MDH
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ। हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरीडे।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं, इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
सैंडविच, लस्सी और छाछ और
हर घूंट में चमकी चाट। ड्राई फ्रूट और दही बड़े।
चमकी चाट से स्वाद बढ़े।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो, मिलाओ और खाओ।
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा हार्डकोर मसाला।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी।
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है। अरे मेरे राजा,
मसाला।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं, इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। इस युद्ध के दुष्प्रभाव लंबे समय तक रहने की प्रबल आशंका है, लेकिन मैं देशवासियों को भरोसा देता हूं, सरकार सतर्क है, तत्पर है और पूरी गंभीरता से रणनीति बना रही है। हर निर्णय
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching a 6 Stories at 6 with me, Ishta Mitra, and this edition of a special coverage, we first bring you all the updates are from the West Asia war. How Iran has now refuted the US claim of ongoing negotiations and has even warned of more strikes on US bases in the Middle East. Now, lined up next for you is Trump's extension of deadline for Iran. Now, the US President Donald Trump has extended the deadline for negotiations to April 6th. So we show you how Trump has now turned from a complete offensive to now extending deadlines in the West Asia war. And next up in the bulletin is Trump's search for allies. Now this, as the US Embassy has now put out a social media post saying how Prime Minister Modi was one leader that gets things done. Now, this tweet comes amid Trump's worsening ties with NATO and other US allies. Also, moving on to what is happening within India. Now, next up in the bulletin will be governments slashing excise duties on petrol and diesel, a huge relief for oil firms as government now absorbs the shock of the global energy crisis. And lined up on the bulletin is also a massive ruckus that broke out in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly as the National Conference leaders disrupted the proceedings of the House in a show of protest against the US and Israeli strikes on Iran. And soon the chaos erupted and slogans were raised against Prime Minister, leading to the clashes between the MLAs. And viewers, we conclude this bulletin with the oath-taking ceremony of Nepal's youngest Prime Minister, the rapper turned politician Balendra Shah. Now, the grand oath-taking ceremony took place in Kathmandu as Shah's supporters, the Nepalese Gen Z, cheered for him. We'll get you all the details on that. Now, let's get started. Now, viewers, as the war in West Asia continues to intensify, conflicting statements are now emerging from Washington and Tehran on the future of this conflict. Now, while President Donald Trump claims that Iran is eager to strike a deal and end the war soon, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has now said that Iran will continue defending itself for as long as it is required. Now, the sharp contrast in the messaging highlights the uncertain nature of the conflict at this point of time, which is about to complete 30 days just tomorrow. Let's take a look at this report that talks about how contradicting statements are now emerging from both the sides as the conflict nears 30 days.
As the dynamics of the West Asia war continue to shift rapidly, contradictory statements are emerging from US and Iran, signaling that the conflict may not end anytime soon. US President Donald Trump, in his latest remarks, claimed that Iran was eager to negotiate and that the war could end soon.
The problem with the Straits is this. Let's say we do a great job. We say we got 99%. 1% is unacceptable because 1% is a missile going into the hull of a ship that cost $1 billion, right? So 1% is we can't. If we do a 99% decimation, that's no good. So it's really, you know, a little bit. But I have a feeling it's going to clean up pretty quickly. I could just say this: they want to make, and I probably hurt our little negotiation. It gives them a little impetus to say, well, I wish you didn't say that. But they said yesterday that we weren't negotiating with them, and now they admit that we were negotiating with them. So they want to make a deal. The reason they want to make a deal is they have been just beat to shit.
But Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has openly denied US's statement. He said that Iran will continue to defend itself and its territory as long as needed.
In the face of earlier manifestations of lawlessness and atrocity in occupied Palestine, Lebanon, and elsewhere, indifference and silence in the face of injustices would bring no security and peace. It would invite more insecurity and right violations. The United Nations and the core values it embodies, as well as the overall human rights framework, are at serious stake.
Araghchi also asserted that Iran has the right to defend itself against what he called acts of aggression and that US cannot so easily absolve itself of killing school children in Minab.
Among the most harrowing manifestations of this aggression was the calculated, phased assault on Shajarat Tayyib Elementary School in the city of Minab, south of Iran, where more than 175 students and teachers were slaughtered in cold blood. This barbaric attack is but the visible tip of a far bigger iceberg.
Not only this, IRGC issued a direct threat of strikes as he asked people to evacuate areas near US-Israeli bases, saying that they might be struck. Even as questions grow over negotiations that were reportedly underway before hostilities began, the West Asia war is now nearing its 4th week. Iran has repeatedly argued that under the UN Charter, it retains the right to defend itself against what it calls external aggression. With US claiming Iran wants a deal and Tehran insisting the war will continue as long as needed, the future of the conflict remains uncertain, leaving the geopolitical situation in West Asia increasingly unpredictable.
And now, viewers, the US President Donald Trump has put the bombing of Iran's power sector on hold, saying that Iran had requested the pause. Now, the next deadline, according to Trump's statement, is April 6th, and this comes only after he announced a 5-day pause for energy strikes on Iran earlier. Now, at the same time, Trump claims that there are negotiations underway. Talks are being held with the Iranian leadership to seal a deal. Now, viewers, while Trump is making these claims on one side, there's also mobilization happening on the ground on the other, with over 7,000 US troops now headed to West Asia. So the big question right now is this a genuine pause on the side of the US or just a tactical breather for the US to inflict the final blow on Iran? Take a look at this report.
From treading on a complete offensive against Iran,
Dark at night, no moon, no light, every single bomb hit its mark and just obliterated that.
to now again extending the deadline, speculations are high on what is next for the United States in the Iran war. US President Donald Trump said he had extended the deadline for Iran to strike a deal with Washington to April 6th after Tehran sought more time. The US president said Iran had requested a 7-day pause on possible US strikes, but he is granting a 10-day window, calling it a flexible approach. This is in addition to the initial 5-day deadline set by the United States. This time, Trump warned that failure to reach a deal could trigger US strikes on Iran's power infrastructure. Trump also claimed that Iran allowed 8 oil tankers to pass the Strait of Hormuz as a goodwill gesture, though this remark remains unverified. Tehran, on the other hand, seems to have rejected the United States proposal, calling it one-sided and unfair. This development comes as the United States boosts its military presence in West Asia, raising fears of escalation. However, the markets did respond a little positive to Trump's extension, this as global equities showed recovery and Brent crude also dipped after a sharp surge. With markets desperately hoping for a respite but no diplomatic breakthrough in sight, tensions still remain high in West Asia.
Now, viewers, at a time when the US is feeling increasingly isolated, Donald Trump is bashing NATO leaders for declaring that Iran war is not their war, and none of the European allies are ready to join Trump's coalition to secure the Strait of Hormuz. The US president is now looking for more allies, and now this is evident in a post shared by the US Embassy. It hails the country's relationship with India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Trump also says that Washington's relationship will even be going stronger going forward with India, while adding that Prime Minister Modi and Trump are only two people that gets things done, something that cannot be said for most other leaders. So take a look at this report that talks about the changing geopolitical dynamics at a time when Trump's war is finding no takers around the globe.
Only this week, US President Donald Trump openly bashed NATO, calling it a paper tiger. Trump said NATO did nothing to help US in the Iran war.
So we were there for them, but they were not there for us. Did we need them? No. I never thought we needed them. I was more doing a test. I said, I really would love to have you come up. Bring your boats. You can sail through the beautiful Hormuz Straits, and you can protect people that are being shot at. They didn't do it. And that's small potatoes. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And when ties don't seem so good with NATO and other European allies, Trump now seems to have turned back to India. The US Embassy recently put out a post hailing the US-India relationship. The tweet quoted US President Donald Trump as saying, PM Modi and I are two people that get things done, a statement that is now being watched closely in the diplomatic circles. This also comes in the context of US-Israeli strikes close to the Pakistan embassy in Tehran and also US demarcating no-go zones for its citizens in Pakistan. This applause of India-US relationship has also fanned the diplomatic narrative, which is Trump now looking towards reviving ties with Modi when relationship with other allies doesn't seem to have fared well for him in the Iran war? This is also because Trump has said that he will never forget NATO's betrayal.
With Iran, we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, and nobody's a match for the United States, but they're not a match for the United States. It's small potatoes. That's why I'm so disappointed in NATO, because this was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to, but if you don't have, if you don't do that, we're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember my statements. They have an expression, a great expression, never forget. Can never forget.
Not only the US president, but other US leaders have also been on the offensive as far as NATO is concerned.
The United States is constantly being asked to help in a war, and we have more than any other country in the world, on a war that's happening in another continent, in Ukraine. But when the U.S. had a need, he didn't get proper positive responses. So right now he's just making the observation that, I think there was a couple of leaders in Europe who said that this was not Europe's war. Well, Ukraine is not America's war, and yet we've contributed more to that fight than any other country in the world. So it'll be something to examine. The president will have to take into account down the road.
Trump's deteriorating ties with NATO and now him praising PM Modi leads to a big question. Is US now looking for new allies after NATO's betrayal? And is India one among the options?
And now we are shifting focus to what's happening inside India. Now, the central government on Thursday cut excise duty on petrol and diesel for oil marketing companies. Now, the centre here slashed excise duty on petrol to about ₹3 per litre. This is down from earlier 13, while diesel duty has been cut to about 0, down from ₹10 per litre. Now, the move here aims to help oil marketing companies reduce under-recoveries amid the ongoing conflict in Middle East, which has caused a strain in the oil market due to the blockade of Strait of Hormuz. Now, the question is that there will be no change in the pump price of petrol or diesel, which means that the retail prices will remain changed. But the question is, if the Strait of Hormuz and the war prolongs right now, for how long can India budge this crisis at this point? To take a look at this report that talks about India's energy security steps taken by the government.
A day after Nayara Energy, India's largest private fuel retailer, hiked petrol prices by ₹5.30 per litre and diesel by ₹3 per litre, government has now stepped in to absorb the energy shock. The central government has announced duty cut on petrol and diesel, a move seen as a huge relief to oil firms struggling with the global energy crisis.
The centre has stepped in to cushion the impact of the rising crude oil prices globally by cutting the excise duty on petrol and diesel. The petrol, the excise duty on petrol, which was earlier levelled at 13 rupees per litre, is now brought down to 3 rupees per litre, and the diesel, which was earlier levelled at 10 rupees per litre, is now brought down at 0 rupees per litre. Now, this step has not yet yielded any results for the consumers yet, which means that this change in price will not be directly impacting the consumers yet. The prices remain the same, but this is in simpler terms a step from the government to cushion and to absorb the shock which was caused to these oil marketing companies, be it Indian Oil, BPCL, HPCL, which were losing huge funds when the global prices of the crude oil was brought over $100 a barrel.
क्योंकि विदेश में मार्केट में दाम बढ़ रही है क्रूड का, उसके कारण पेट्रोल और डीजल का, एटीएफ का, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ये चाहा कि कंज्यूमर का प्राइस बढ़ना नहीं है। उसके कारण हम निर्णय लिए हैं कि ऑयल मार्केटिंग कंपनीज को सपोर्ट दें और जिससे वो ज़्यादा दाम में खरीदने वाली चीज़ों को सरकार उनको मदद करेगी, मगर जनता के ऊपर रेट बढ़ाना नहीं होना चाहिए।
The excise duty for petrol per litre has been reduced by 10 rupees and now stands at 3 rupees per litre, while for diesel the excise duty has been entirely waived off by the government. The duty cut is also a big relief for retail consumers. This as the government is bearing the cost of the crisis and oil firms will now be expected to keep the retail prices stable for consumers. The government also decisively quashed the rumors of a lockdown, saying there is no shortage of oil.
हमारे देश में गैस और ऑयल कितने कम प्रोडक्शन होते हैं और हम बाहर से निर्भर रखते हैं। आम जिंदगी में सबको गैस चाहिए, सबको पेट्रोल डीजल चाहिए, तो इसको किसी तरह से दाम ना बढ़े, नियंत्रण में रखे, इसके लिए इतना बड़ा फैसला लेना, वो भी पेट्रोल तब 3 रुपया एक्साइज ड्यूटी रख दिया, इतना कम आप कल्पना भी नहीं कर सकते हैं, और डीजल में 0 कर दिया।
Amid the ongoing war, another LPG tanker, Pine Gas, crossing the Strait of Hormuz, is set to dock in India. This as India secures itself against the energy crisis.
And now viewers, on to the northern part of the country. A massive ruckus broke out in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly as NC leaders disrupted the proceedings of the House in a show of protest, and this against the US and Israeli strikes on Iran. Now this was followed up by the protest staged by the BJP leaders who criticized the ruling dispensation for raising the price of petrol and diesel and allegedly for obstructing the establishment of a national law university. Take a look at this report.
Chaos broke out in Jammu and Kashmir's Legislative Assembly. National Conference leaders entered the assembly carrying Iran's former supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei's picture, raising slogans in his support, waving posters, disrupting the budget session.
मैंने कॉल अटेंशन भी दिया है, मैंने एडजर्नमेंट मोशन भी दिया है। हम समझते हैं कि जिस तरीके से आयतुल्लाह सैयद अली खामेनेई साहब का कत्ल हुआ, जिस तरह उनको शहीद किया गया, किसी भी मुल्क का कोई भी हक नहीं बनता है किसी मुल्क के ऊपर हमला करना, और एक मजहबी लीडर को बे तरीके से जिस तरह मारा गया, वो हम उसकी निंदा करते हैं।
The protest over Iran war soon turned political. NC leaders raised slogans against Prime Minister Modi, prompting a response from the BJP leaders. The result, a full-blown scuffle broke out between Congress MLA Irfan Hafiz Lone and BJP MLA Yudhvir Sethi. The situation spiraled. Police had to intervene to restore order in the assembly. In view of the continuous disruption, the assembly was eventually adjourned. This was followed up by BJP legislators gheroing the assembly in protest.
मैंने उस दिन भी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस की थी। ये लोग अपना 2 रुपये इन्होंने पिछली बार भी बढ़ाया, 2 रुपये इस बार बढ़ा रहे हैं। करोड़ों रुपया ये लोग कमा रहे हैं, फिर भी NLU देते इनको तकलीफ है, फिर भी युवाओं को रोजगार नहीं मिल रहा, फिर भी जो सिलेंडर मुफ्त देने थे वो नहीं दे रहे, फिर भी बूढ़ियों को जो इन्होंने पेंशन देनी वो भी नहीं दे रहे। इसलिए सिर्फ खाने का काम है, बांटने का ये सरकार नहीं करती।
BJP leaders demanded for establishment of a national law university in Jammu. BJP leaders also protested against the hike in petrol and diesel prices by the state's government. This comes as Indian government slashed the excise duty on petrol and diesel for oil marketing companies. A big relief that will cushion the pressure on the end consumers.
And now here's on to what's happening in Nepal. Balendra Shah, Nepal's youngest prime minister, took the oath of office today after his party won a landslide victory in the elections earlier this month. Now, this comes following a youth-led uprising that toppled the government in September in Nepal. Now, this was a Gen Z-led uprising that has now led to the youngest prime minister taking oath in the country today. Take a look at this report.
Rapper turned politician and Nepal's youngest Prime Minister, Balendra Shah, today took oath in a grand oath-taking ceremony in the Nepalese capital, Kathmandu. The Gen Z Prime Minister was administered his oath by the Nepali President Ramachandra, a much-awaited ceremony that came after the nationwide Gen Z protests.
Just hours before being sworn in as Nepal's Prime Minister, former rapper turned politician Balendra Shah released a rap song calling on Nepalese to unify for the development of the nation and to make their dreams come true. Hours later, when he was sworn in and became the Prime Minister, he became not only the first youngest Prime Minister of Nepal at age 35, but also the first Prime Minister from the Madhesi community of southern Nepal.
Balendra Shah's party, Rashtriya Swatantra Party, won nearly 2/3 of the seats in the Nepali House of Representatives in the polls. The 35-year-old political outsider, widely known as Balen, will now lead a government tasked with navigating deep public frustration with Nepal's established parties, who were widely blamed by voters for corruption and chronic political instability. With a Shankhnad and a traditional Hindu ceremony, Balendra Shah today took oath with another 15 members of the new cabinet on the occasion of Ram Navami, a day symbolically chosen for political messaging. The rapper turned politician, now the youngest Prime Minister of the country, was greeted by officials and diplomats as his supporters, the Nepalese Gen Z, cheered outside the presidential residence. Balendra Shah was the crucial face of the Gen Z protest that toppled the Nepalese government on charges of corruption. And now, with a massive mandate and a strong public support, all eyes will be on Balendra Shah, who now faces the challenge of delivering on promises of reform and stability in a country that has long been troubled by political uncertainty.
All right, viewers, that's all we could pack in this edition of 6 Stories at 6 with me, Ishita Mitra. Thank you so much for watching, and don't go anywhere. News and developments continue here on Republic on the other side.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद ये तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरी राजा।
Amity has been ranked among the top universities globally for producing the most employable graduates by the Times Higher Education UK. Yet another testimony to Amity's excellent placement record.
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
आलू चाट या फ्रूट चाट,
स्वाद बढ़ाए चमकी चाट।
क्या बात है, स्वादिष्ट पकोड़े और फरसान, अरे चमकी चाट है इसकी जान।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार, विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी।
आर प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरीडे।
प्यास बुझाए ठंडक लाए सबको भाई जीरा से, MDH का जलजीरा जीरा से।
जीरा से असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा।
MDH।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी,
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो, मिलाओ और खाओ,
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है, सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार, विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी।
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
सैंडविच लस्सी और छाछ।
हर घूंट में चमकी चाट। ड्राई फ्रूट और दही बड़े, चमकी चाट से स्वाद बढ़े। असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। इस युद्ध के दुष्प्रभाव लंबे समय तक रहने की प्रबल आशंका है, लेकिन मैं देशवासियों को भरोसा देता हूं, सरकार सतर्क है, तत्पर है और पूरी गंभीरता से रणनीति बना रही है, हर निर्णय ले रही है। देश की जनता का हित हमारे लिए सर्वोपरि है।
These talks go well and you reach a ceasefire agreement with.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Welcome viewers, you're watching Live and Breaking on Republic TV with me, Ishita Mitra. Now viewers, the war in West Asia is about to complete 30 days, but there are no signs of de-escalation on the ground as Iran says will continue striking US bases. We'll get you all the updates on that, but first up, a quick check at the headlines. US report claims major face-off between JD Vance and Netanyahu. Reports say Vance questioned Israeli assessment on toppling Iranian regime. Big relief to oil firms. Centre reduces excise duty on both diesel and petrol. Retail prices remain unchanged. Massive defence push by India. Proposals worth rupees 2.28 lakh crore cleared. Dhanush gun system, runaway aerial surveillance system part of the deal. Big boost for armed forces. India signs rupees 858 crore deal for Tunguska missile system and P-8I jet maintenance. Prime Minister to interact with the Chief Ministers virtually on West Asia war preparedness shortly. All right, here's our top focus at this hour. Reports are claiming that a US Vice President JD Vance had a difficult call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday. Now, this is where he said that Israeli assessments for toppling the Iranian regime were not realistic enough. He also said you were too optimistic in your assessments regarding the overthrow of the regime in Iran. So we're certainly looking at a rift between the US leadership as well as Israeli leadership. Now, it's a difficult call that's now taking place between the Vice President JD Vance and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, in this call, the US Vice President JD Vance questioned Israeli assessment of toppling the Iranian regime. Now, we have seen, viewers, that right after Khamenei was killed, Ayatollah Khamenei was killed, his son Mojtaba Khamenei took over. So there was certainly not a regime change in Iran that took place that's now causing the rift between Israel and the US. And there's a tough call that's now taking place between the Vice President JD Vance, who has questioned that how come Israeli assessment was completely in contradiction to what is now taken place in Iran. Now, essentially, the assessment of Israel with regards to toppling of Iranian regime is what is now causing the rift between US and Israel as the war still continues unabated. Now, this time it's JD Vance who's questioned directly the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, asking him how come Israel's assessment was so wrong that a regime change has not taken place in Iran. Now, it's a tough call that's taken place between the two leaders on Monday, and there's still more details awaited about this call, but the rift seems to be now widening between the US and Israel. All right, my colleague Abhishek Kapurna joins me with more details on this. Abhishek, it seems that there's a rift that's growing between Israel and the US, and the recent call between the Vice President JD Vance and Israeli Prime Minister also highlights the same. Now, questions are being raised about Israeli assessment in a toppling Iranian regime.
Well, this is a significant development. Remember, Ishita, these are American media reports, and which means that obviously the Americans want this to come out. And the fact that JD Vance, who's the Vice President of the United States, has spoken to the Prime Minister of Israel and asked whether the Israelis were right in their assessment that there would be regime change. There is clearly a suggestion that the Americans are now, howsoever subtly so, distancing themselves from this war and trying to put the onus on the Israelis. There is clearly a suggestion here in these reports that the Americans were perhaps waylaid, if not exactly misled, on the exact intelligence assessment about the ground situation in Tehran, which also suggests that the Americans just went into the war at the behest of the Israelis or on the suggestion of the Israelis or as per the plan of the Israelis. So I think this is the first time in the last 1 month since the beginning of the war that we are hearing that there is an element of disagreement, and not only just a small disagreement, a big disagreement on the assessment of the ground situation based on which this war was picked up and has gone on for 28 days, causing disruption not just in West Asia, but the entire world. So I think with the kind of pressure that's been building up on the Americans, the kind of standoffish approach that the Europeans have taken, for example, the kind of talking back that we have seen from many other countries to the United States with a tiny Sri Lanka not allowing Americans to use their territory for landings and takeoffs. It's clear that the Americans also, for whatever braggadocio we see generally being projected, are sort of feeling hemmed in, and they need a ramp off, so to say. Ceasefire is one of them, where President Trump has sort of suggested over the last 48 hours with his statements that most of their military objectives have been achieved except for freeing the Hormuz, which are ideally those who benefit from Hormuz, including the Europeans, should have come and assisted. But since they have not, America is taking that burden on its shoulders, and it's going to send in reinforcements, including Marines, including the airborne special forces of the 82nd Division, and then free Hormuz, and then they would be done with the war. If that's the suggestion, then clearly this is yet another attempt by the Americans to really somehow come out of this situation that they find themselves in. And earlier we saw, for example, President Trump suggesting that this war happened because Pete Hegseth said, yes, let's do it. And, trying to, howsoever subtly so, shift the onus on the Secretary of War of the United States. And now with this leak coming in, that Vance has spoken to Netanyahu and asked whether the assessment of the Israelis on the ground situation in Tehran, because remember what has happened, Ayatollah Khamenei is gone, his son has come, an 86-year-old Ayatollah Khamenei has been replaced by a 56-year-old Ayatollah Khamenei. The IRGC's grip over Iran has become stronger, if anything. Those people who were rational, those people who could be spoken to, they are gone. And now the Americans or the Israelis or the world interlocutors do not know whom to speak to. So this is a very difficult quagmire in which the United States finds itself in, and the world, of course, pays the price. And so obviously this is clearly an attempt, a strong one at that, of distancing themselves for the first time perhaps since the war began from taking responsibility and onus of what's really happening on the ground.
Right, Abhishek, certainly it looks like the US here is taking the heat as there are no signs of de-escalation or no pause in the conflict that seems coming in from the Iranian side. Thank you, Abhishek, for joining us and giving us these crucial inputs on this story. Now, viewers, talking about more developments we're getting from the battlefield. Now, this time Iran has targeted Israeli army's transportation center. Israel has been hit a big time this now, and Iran claims that it was in Tel Aviv that their headquarters has been hit. It's the largest transportation center of the Israeli army that's now been hit by Iran in the latest strikes as it continues with its assaults across the Israeli landscape. Now, we're looking at a big attack this time carried out on a transportation center. This is Israeli army's transportation center that's now been hit by Iranian missiles. We've also accessed the video of the attack on your screen right now. You can see Iranian missiles are being launched to carry out attacks against the US and Israeli assets. And the latest one in this case has been carried out on a transportation center. It's a transportation center belonging to Israeli army in Tel Aviv that's now been hit by Iranian missiles. We have seen more and more attacks coming on civilian infrastructure, but military targets are also being hit by the Iranian strikes across Israel. And this time it's a transportation center of the Israeli army that's been hit in the latest strikes. Now, viewers, as the war in West Asia continues to intensify, conflicting statements are now emerging from both the sides. Now, Donald Trump says that there is a pause in the conflict right now. Negotiations are underway. He's talking to some leadership in Iran to seal a deal. But at the same time, Iran comes out with a completely different statement saying that we did not request a pause in this conflict and we will continue with our strikes for as long as it's required. So in this atmosphere of uncertain warfare, we're looking at sharp contrast in the messaging coming in from both the sides. Take a look at this report.
As the dynamics of the West Asia war continue to shift rapidly, contradictory statements are emerging from US and Iran, signaling that the conflict may not end anytime soon. US President Donald Trump, in his latest remarks, claimed that Iran was eager to negotiate and that the war could end soon.
The problem with the Straits is this. Let's say we do a great job. We say we got 99%. 1% is unacceptable because 1% is a missile going into the hull of a ship that cost $1 billion, right? So 1% is we can't. If we do a 99% decimation, that's no good. So it's really, you know, a little bit. But I have a feeling it's going to clean up pretty quickly. I could just say this: they want to make, and I probably hurt our little negotiation. It gives them a little impetus to say, well, I wish you didn't say that. But they said yesterday that we weren't negotiating with them, and now they admit that we were negotiating with them. So they want to make a deal. The reason they want to make a deal is they have been just beat to shit.
But Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has openly denied US's statement. He said that Iran will continue to defend itself and its territory as long as needed.
In the face of earlier manifestations of lawlessness and atrocity in occupied Palestine, Lebanon and elsewhere, indifference and silence in the face of injustices would bring no security and peace. It would invite more insecurity and right violations. The United Nations and the core values it embodies, as well as the overall human rights framework, are at serious stake.
Araghchi also asserted that Iran has the right to defend itself against what he called acts of aggression and that US cannot so easily absolve itself of killing school children in Minab.
Among the most harrowing manifestations of this aggression was the calculated, phased assault on Shajarat Tayyebe Elementary School in the city of Minab, south of Iran, where more than 175 students and teachers were slaughtered in cold blood. This barbaric attack is but the visible tip of a far bigger iceberg.
Not only this, Araghchi issued a direct threat of strikes as he asked people to evacuate areas near US-Israeli bases, saying that they might be struck. Even as questions grow over negotiations that were reportedly underway before hostilities began, the West Asia war is now nearing its fourth week. Iran has repeatedly argued that under the UN Charter, it retains the right to defend itself against what it calls external aggression. With US claiming Iran wants a deal and Tehran insisting the war will continue as long as needed, the future of the conflict remains uncertain, leaving the geopolitical situation in West Asia increasingly unpredictable.
Now here's more breaking developments coming to light. Prime Minister Modi's meeting with the chief ministers on the West Asia war has already begun at this moment. Now Prime Minister Modi virtually holding this meet with the chief ministers of several states on the West Asia war, apprising the chief ministers of the developments that have taken place in the war, as well as India's strategy regarding its energy security, the concerns of diaspora which has been stranded in the war zone areas, as well as the diplomatic steps India has taken so far in engaging with the leaders from the Gulf nations. So all of these developments is expected that Prime Minister Modi will be, in fact, sharing them with the chief ministers of several states at this moment. It's a virtual meet that's taking place on the West Asia war. It's only the chief ministers from the pole-bound states which are not taking part in this meeting, as MCC, that's a Model Code of Conduct, is already in effect in these states. But other than that, several chief ministers are taking part in this meet with Prime Minister. All right, now viewers, the central government on a Thursday cut excise duty on petrol and diesel for oil marketing companies, and the centre here slashed excise duty on petrol to about 3 rupees per litre, down from earlier 13, and the diesel duty has now been cut to 0, and this is down from 10 rupees per litre. Now, the move here aims to help oil marketing companies reduce their recoveries amid the ongoing conflict in West Asia and absorb the larger shock from the global economic crisis that we are witnessing from the near closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Take a look at this report.
A day after Nayara Energy, India's largest private fuel retailer, hiked petrol prices by rupees 5.30 per litre and diesel by rupees 3 per litre, government has now stepped in to absorb the energy shock. The central government has announced duty cut on petrol and diesel, a move seen as a huge relief to oil firms struggling with the global energy crisis.
The centre has stepped in to cushion the impact of the rising crude oil prices globally by cutting the excise duty on petrol and diesel. The excise duty on petrol, which was earlier levelled at 13 rupees per litre, is now brought down to 3 rupees per litre, and the diesel, which was earlier levelled at 10 rupees per litre, is now brought down at 0 rupees per litre. Now, this step has not yet yielded any results for the consumers yet, which means that this change in price will not be directly impacting the consumers yet. The prices remain the same, but this is in simpler terms a step from the government to cushion and to absorb the shock which was caused to these oil marketing companies, be it Indian Oil, BPCL, HPCL, which were losing huge funds when the global prices of the crude oil was brought over $100 a barrel.
क्योंकि विदेश में मार्केट में दाम बढ़ रही है क्रूड का, उसके कारण पेट्रोल और डीजल का, एटीएफ का, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ये चाहा कि कंज्यूमर का प्राइस बढ़ना नहीं है। उसके कारण हम निर्णय लिए हैं कि ऑयल मार्केटिंग कंपनीज को सपोर्ट दें और जिससे वो ज़्यादा दाम में खरीदने वाली चीज़ों को सरकार उनको मदद करेगी, मगर जनता के ऊपर रेट बढ़ाना नहीं होना चाहिए।
The excise duty for petrol per litre has been reduced by 10 rupees and now stands at 3 rupees per litre, while for diesel the excise duty has been entirely waived off by the government. The duty cut is also a big relief for retail consumers. This as the government is bearing the cost of the crisis, and oil firms will now be expected to keep the retail prices stable for consumers. The government also decisively quashed the rumours of a lockdown, saying there is no shortage of oil.
हमारे देश में गैस और ऑयल कितने कम प्रोडक्शन होते हैं और हम बाहर से निर्भर रखते हैं। आम जिंदगी में सबको गैस चाहिए, सबको पेट्रोल डीजल चाहिए, तो इसको किसी तरह से दाम ना बढ़े, नियंत्रण में रखे, इसके लिए इतना बड़ा फैसला लेना, वो भी पेट्रोल तब 3 रुपया एक्साइज ड्यूटी रख दिया, इतना कम आप कल्पना भी नहीं कर सकते हैं, और डीजल में 0 कर दिया।
Amid the ongoing war, another LPG tanker, Pine Gas, crossing the Strait of Hormuz, is set to dock in India. This as India secures itself against the energy crisis.
And now viewers, on to a controversy that's brewing in Karnataka. Now, Congress netas have been seeking free IPL tickets, and the state government has now come out, in fact, The Deputy Chief Minister of the state has come out supporting this stance. It's a height of VVIP racism that we're now witnessing in Karnataka, wherein Deputy Chief Minister DK Shivkumar himself now says they're part of the government. It's their right to seek a free IPL ticket. Now, that's the statement coming in from the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka, DK Shivkumar, on several Congress MLAs are demanding free IPL tickets. Let him quote him here. In fact, he says, MLAs have the right to ask as they are part of the government. I want to see that our MLAs will be accommodated. He also goes on to take a jibe at the BJP leader. He now says that against the BJP leader Tejaswi Surya, let Tejaswi give gyan. I will try and see, I will speak to Chairman, President and those people and try and get our MLAs accommodated. Let's listen in to the reaction.
The MLAs have right because they are the part of the system, they are part of the government, and we have to, earlier also some respect has been given to all of them. But now with lot of difficulty, with all the pressures only, we have permitted them. Though I may be a member, that is a different question as my personal capacity. But now I speak to the chairman, president and those people. I wanted to see that our MLAs will be accommodated. I think today I am on the job. The MLAs have right because they are the part of the system, they are part of the government, and we have to, earlier also some respect has been given to all of them. But now with lot of difficulty, with all the pressures only, we have permitted them. Though I may be a member, that is a different question as my personal capacity. But now I speak to the chairman, president and those people. I wanted to see that our MLAs will be accommodated. I think today I am on the job.
Now we are shifting focus to what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir. A massive ruckus broke out in Jammu and Kashmir Assembly as several NC leaders disrupted the proceedings of the House in a show of protest. And this protest is against the US and Israeli strikes on Iran. Now, this was followed up by the protest staged by the BJP leaders who criticized the ruling dispensation for raising the price of petrol and diesel and for allegedly obstructing the establishment of a national law university. Now, take a look at this report that talks about how this chaos unfolded in the assembly.
Chaos broke out in Jammu and Kashmir's Legislative Assembly. National Conference leaders entered the assembly carrying Iran's former supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei's picture, raising slogans in his support, waving posters, disrupting the budget session.
मैंने कॉल अटेंशन भी दिया है, मैंने एडजर्नमेंट मोशन भी दिया है। हम समझते हैं कि जिस तरीके से आयतुल्लाह सैयद अली खामेनेई साहब का कत्ल हुआ, जिस तरह उनको शहीद किया गया, किसी भी मुल्क का कोई भी हक नहीं बनता है किसी मुल्क के ऊपर हमला करना, और एक मजहबी लीडर को बे तरीके से जिस तरह मारा गया, वो हम उसकी निंदा करते हैं।
The protest over Iran war soon turned political. NC leaders raised slogans against Prime Minister Modi, prompting a response from the BJP leaders. The result, a full-blown scuffle broke out between Congress MLA Irfan Hafiz Lone and BJP MLA Yudhvir Sethi. The situation spiraled. Police had to intervene to restore order in the assembly. In view of the continuous disruption, the assembly was eventually adjourned. This was followed up by BJP legislators gheroing the assembly in protest.
मैंने उस दिन भी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस की थी। ये लोग अपना 2 रुपये इन्होंने पिछली बार भी बढ़ाया, 2 रुपये इस बार बढ़ा रहे हैं। करोड़ों रुपया ये लोग कमा रहे हैं, फिर भी NLU देते इनको तकलीफ है, फिर भी युवाओं को रोजगार नहीं मिल रहा, फिर भी जो सिलेंडर मुफ्त देने थे वो नहीं दे रहे, फिर भी बूढ़ियों को जो इन्होंने पेंशन देनी वो भी नहीं दे रहे। इसलिए सिर्फ खाने का काम है, बांटने का ये सरकार नहीं करती।
BJP leaders demanded for establishment of a national law university in Jammu. BJP leaders also protested against the hike in petrol and diesel prices by the state's government. This comes as Indian government slashed the excise duty on petrol and diesel for oil marketing companies. A big relief that will cushion the pressure on the end consumers.
Now here's coming up on the other side, Congress. Big boost for defense forces. India signs a rupees 858 crore deal for Tunguska missile system and P-8I jet maintenance.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरी राजा।
Amity has been ranked among the top universities globally for producing the most employable graduates by the Times Higher Education UK. Yet another testimony to Amity's excellent placement record.
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
सैंडविच लस्सी और छाछ और
हर घूंट में चमकी चाट। अब बताओ स्वाद आया? आया।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
आर प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरीडे।
चमकी चाट से क्या बना है?
आलू चाट या फ्रूट चाट।
स्वाद बढ़ाए चमकी चाट।
क्या बात है? स्वादिष्ट पकोड़े और बरसान, अरे चमकी चाट है इसकी जान।
असली स्वाद सिर्फ चमकी चाट।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो, मिलाओ और खाओ।
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
यानी इस घर में कुछ है जो टूटता नहीं।
ये पिलर कभी नहीं टूटेगा। रुंगटा स्टील TMT से बना।
रुंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रुंगटा स्टील TMT बार एकदम सॉलिड।
प्यास बुझाए, ठंडक लाए, सबको भाए जीरा से। MDH का जलजीरा जीरा से।
जीरा सिप, असली रिफ्रेशिंग, असली स्वाद, असली मजा।
MDH।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद यही तो है इसकी खास बात। वाओ मामा क्या स्वाद है? अरे मेरी राजा।
हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। इसलिए मैं देशवासियों से भी कहूंगा कि हमें हर चुनौती के लिए तैयार रहना ही होगा। जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं। आदरणीय सभापति जी, ये संकट अलग प्रकार का है और इसके समाधान भी अलग प्रकार से ही तय किए जा रहे हैं। हमें धीरज के साथ, संयम के साथ, शांत मन से हर चुनौती का मुकाबला करना है। आदरणीय सभापति जी, जैसा कि हम देख रहे हैं कि इस युद्ध को लेकर पल पल में हालात बदल रहे हैं।
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Very good evening, viewers. You're watching World at War with me, Rakshita Mishra, and I have my colleague Gesu also joining us in the studios. We'll tell you about how Donald Trump is continuing with his carrot and stick approach. He has extended the deadline for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz by 10 days now. It's going to be the 6th of April. That is going to be the deadline for Iran. But Gesu, we also have, of course, much more that we are going to cover in the next 25 minutes.
Right, Rakshita. In fact, we're also talking about what's happening to the Israeli Defense Forces amid the multi-front war that it's fighting, one in Gaza, simultaneously the other one in Iran. Now, Israeli military chiefs have raised alarm saying that the Israeli Defense Forces are on the verge of collapse, and this is a security disaster. The Israeli cabinet is divided, and we're getting you all the details, but first, let's take a look at your headlines for the hour.
US report claims major face-off between JD Vance and Netanyahu. Reports say Vance questioned Israeli assessment on toppling the Iranian regime.
Big relief to oil firms. Centre reduces excise duty on both diesel and petrol. Retail prices remain unchanged.
Massive defense push by India. Proposals worth 2,28,000 crore rupees cleared. The Dhanush gun system, runway aerial surveillance system, part of the deal.
Big boost for armed forces. India signs 858 crore rupee deal for Tunguska missile system P-81 jet maintenance.
And Prime Minister Modi interacts with chief ministers virtually. The meeting begins West Asia on the West Asia war preparedness. All right, viewers, let's start with the top story at 7 p.m. this evening. The U.S. president has put on hold the bombing of Iran's energy power plants, saying that Iran had requested this pause. While we see the firing continues, the strikes continue. Now, the deadline this time set up by Donald Trump is the 6th of April. And this comes after he had earlier announced a 5-day pause for the energy strikes on Iran. Now, at the same time, Trump claims that negotiations are also underway. Talks are being held with the Iranian leadership to seal a deal. While Trump claims there is also, we can see the mobilization of the troops happening on ground. 7,000 of U.S. troops continue to build up the presence in West Asia. The big question now remains, is this a genuine pause or just a tactical breather for the United States to inflict what is being touted as the final blow?
From treading on a complete offensive against Iran,
dark at night, no moon, no light, every single bomb hit its mark and just obliterated that.
to now again extending the deadline, speculations are high on what is next for the United States in the Iran war. US President Donald Trump said he had extended the deadline for Iran to strike a deal with Washington to April 6th after Tehran sought more time. The US president said Iran had requested a 7-day pause on possible US strikes, but he is granting a 10-day window, calling it a flexible approach. This is in addition to the initial 5-day deadline set by the United States. This time, Trump warned that failure to reach a deal could trigger US strikes on Iran's power infrastructure. Trump also claimed that Iran allowed 8 oil tankers to pass the Strait of Hormuz as a goodwill gesture, though this remark remains unverified. Tehran, on the other hand, seems to have rejected the United States proposal, calling it one-sided and unfair. This development comes as the United States boosts its military presence in West Asia, raising fears of escalation. However, the markets did respond a little positive to Trump's extension, this as global equities showed recovery and Brent crude also dipped after a sharp surge. With markets desperately hoping for a respite but no diplomatic breakthrough in sight, tensions still remain high in West Asia.
Viewers, that is the Prime Minister speaking to the Chief Ministers of different states over the ongoing tensions in West Asia war and the energy repercussions that India has been dealing with since the beginning of the war that has now spread into a wider region. Now remember, just today, before this, the Petroleum Ministry also flagged that India has secured about 2 months of LPG reserves and that there is no shortage at all. Not just that in fact, excise duty was also slashed on petrol and diesel from an earlier 13 rupees. Now on petrol it comes down to 3 rupees, and for diesel from an earlier 10 rupees it has now come down to 0. Now the Prime Minister is all set to address and is in fact continuing the address with the Chief Ministers of different states. In fact, Rakshita, what we know about the meeting so far is the fact that not just the West Asia crisis, but also government's constant diversification of supply routes will also be discussed. Not just that, but states have to now weigh in on the responsibilities and share the responsibility with the central government, especially when it comes to distribution of LPG, PNG, LNG, and even petroleum in different states.
Right. Just, in fact, we have Senior Executive Editor Abhishek Kapoor also joining us. Abhishek, while the Prime Minister is holding this meeting with the Chief Ministers, and this is with focus on the Team India model that he's been talking about, and it brings back the measures taken for a crisis, something like as big as COVID crisis. Of course, it brings a lot of haunting images when he mentions the COVID crisis. But yes, there will be measures that will be taken. What are we expecting in this briefing, in the measures that will be suggested?
Well, in fact, there have been multiple assurances, Rakshita, that we are nowhere near COVID-like situation, that there are not going to be any lockdowns, that the government is in control of the situation, except for, of course, some stress building up insofar as gas supplies are concerned. On oil, which is like petrol and diesel, we are good, and we would be able to tide over the crisis, even if the war prolongs, and the signs are that the war might not prolong. There might be a bump where we might see an escalation in action from the American and Israeli side, of particularly the Americans, and then a pullback. But still, there has been a disruption, and it has been a massive disruption. And the fact that we could survive it with just a bit of hustle here and there is because the government was prepared. There were proactive measures put in place, and over a period of time, capacity has been built up. Having said that, on the issue of on the front of gas, LPG specifically, and even in that ecosystem, the gas cylinders issue is something which has been an area of concern. So the Prime Minister really wanted all the states on board and to coordinate better. He has already had a cabinet committee on security which had extended invites to other ministries and ministers like from port and shipping, from agriculture, from road and surface transport, etc. So that all ministries, departments really come together to seamlessly tackle this situation in terms of logistics, because logistics becomes the most important aspect of handling this kind of situation. So the Prime Minister wanted all the states also to be on board and to be briefed about the exact situation. This is essentially in a spirit of cooperative federalism that this meeting is taking place. The officers are, of the respective ministries, including the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, including the Ministry of Energy, including the Ministry of Ports and Surface Transport and Foreign Secretary. They're all sort of going to brief the Chief Minister so that they know what all is being done and what is expected of them. The Prime Minister would speak. The Chief Ministers, if they have to give input, would be speaking on the agenda, of course, is to make sure that the essentials, the essential commodities, which includes, it's not just limited to fuel, by the way. Fuel is the most important aspect, but where the government, of course, does most of the heavy lifting. But issues like pharmaceuticals, issues like food supplies, vegetables, fruits, etc., their movement should not get disrupted for want of fuel. So all those things are being discussed in this meeting. We would know in a while if there were some collective decisions taken and what they were.
Right, Abhishek. In fact, we're also being joined by CA V. Subramaniam, who is a senior economist and is going to speak to us about what's been ongoing. So thank you very much for speaking to Republic First. Now I want to understand from you, in the looming threat of the entire energy crisis, India says that they have been able to secure 2 months' worth of LPG. What does this mean? And also speak to us about the fuel costs as well. The shock absorbance system that's been put in place by the government. They have absorbed all extra shocks of price fluctuation, and that's what the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has said, and excise duty on top of it has also been slashed.
No, as you rightly said, I think government as Ministry of Finance has taken the step boldly to reduce the 10 rupees per litre on petrol and as well as diesel, the excise duty cut since this morning. Okay. Oil marketing companies, they are incurring loss of 2,400 crores every day on the price increase in the crude oil. If you track the crude oil prices past over 1 month, it has moved from $70 per barrel to $70 per barrel to close to 120 barrels per day. On an average, you can say $100 per barrel, okay, which means 3,000 rupees in Indian rupee, the barrel cost has gone up, which gives about 22 rupees per litre. One barrel can accommodate about 133 litres. That's the thumb rule. So we can say about 22 rupees price increase has been these oil marketing companies were facing for past 1.5 months. So they were in the really very, very big losses. So government has taken a step, at least 50% of that, government can bear it. This kind of steps have been taken in the past when the Russia-Ukraine conflict were going on. So government has taken that 10 rupees on excise duty. If we can pass on the benefit, we can pass on to the oil marketing companies. End of the day, oil marketing companies' losses will be funded by government ultimately. When the central government, when they prepare the budget, oil marketing companies are going to incur a loss. Finally, the public sector undertakings have to be strengthened by the central government finance only. So what I said is, okay, 10 rupees, we will reduce it. And whatever the losses you are incurring now, which can offset, partially they can offset the prices also. So that there will not be any price increase, further price increase to the consumer, ultimate consumers like you and me. Because there is a company called Naira. So they increased the petrol price by roughly about 5 rupees and diesel price by 3 rupees. So if PSUs also start increasing the prices, then directly the consumers will be impacted, like 1.4 billion people who are day in and day out consuming petrol and diesel for their daily livelihood. So then it will directly impact their savings and indirectly it will go and increase the inflation. Right. So that is why I think boldly, about 2 weeks back, I believe, Nirmala Sitharaman Madam, our finance minister, she has announced government has created 1 lakh crore as an emergency fund to meet this crisis. I'm sure this 10 rupees excise duty cut will be met out from the 1 lakh crore what they are going to set up now. So I think because of that, probably we can have a little breathe for next up, maybe about 2 months. And they said we have an energy supply or energy safety for about 60 days in terms of LNG. I think for overall energy, overall crude oil and LNG together, gas together, we had about 75 days of emergency stock. You know that India is maintaining the strategic reserves, oil reserves under the ground for about 75 days, and we have a plan to increase it for another 15 days by 2026 end. So there will be a 90-day stock at any point of time. We'll be having it. Parallelly, we are having talks with other countries. I think there is a talk which has been opened with the Russian country that we are going to import liquefied natural gas through Russia. I think this was happening prior Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now that door is started opening now. I think we are going to start now. I think 2 weeks back when the Russian energy minister, deputy energy minister was here, the talks have been held with our energy department and their energy minister. I think the things are in a right track. Hopefully, I think the chief ministers and prime ministers meeting, what we are having today, these things will be discussed, and I think the proper strategy will come out after this meeting.
Very quickly, Mr. Subramaniam, I want to understand from you, in very simpler terms for our viewers, for the common man, how does it really impact inflation? Are we going to see a serious hit in the future, in the near future?
No. As I told you, when the oil price per barrel was increased from $70 per barrel to $122 per barrel, which means oil marketing companies were paying anywhere between 30 rupees per liter for importing the crude oil. So which means directly it has to be passed on to normally, typically when the businesses, when there's a price increase in their input, there will be obviously the correlation in the output price increase also. But we are able to maintain the petrol diesel prices in the range of 100 rupees, 94 to 100 rupees, both petrol and diesel put together. So which means government is absorbing, the oil marketing companies are absorbing the cost, and some of it is partly funded by the central government. That is why we don't see any price increase beyond 100 rupees per liter. If it starts increasing, then it will have a direct impact in the inflation. That is why government has secured 1 lakh crore funds. They are going to fund the oil marketing companies for the losses what they are undergoing now. And OMCs also will have a strategy to how recover their losses. They will have an internal strategy, right? Optimize the profit or reduce the losses. So there will not be any price increase from the layman perspective or common man perspective like you and me.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Subramaniam, for joining us with your insights on the story. Gesu, well, that's of course what we understand with the analysts telling us that it could be not so much of a case to worry for India. But yes, we do expect more to come out from this meeting as it's still underway.
Definitely. Now, viewers, for the first time, a blunt and extremely unusual warning has been floated by the Israeli Defense Forces military commander, who says that the defense forces may just be on the verge of depletion. Now, he said that this is because of a prolonged multi-front war, many wars that Israel has been fighting for yesteryears now. Now, just in the West Asia war, over 5,000 Israeli Defense Forces personnel have been injured. Not just that, with every strike that hits the Israeli soil, concerns also mounting over their armament and their inventory depleting fast. Not just that, inside the Israeli cabinet, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stands to face a clear divide from the opposition that says that resources are being used ambiguously and there is no streamlining and there are structural stresses over the Israeli Defense Forces. Take a look at what's brewing inside Israel.
A stark warning from Israel's top military commander, raising concerns over the IDF's long-term sustainability. Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir told leaders he is raising 10 red flags, warning the army could collapse in on itself if urgent reforms are not implemented. Zamir stressed this is not an immediate battlefield collapse, but a warning that the current system cannot sustain prolonged pressure. Zamir has called for urgent legislative fixes, including new conscription laws, reserve duty reforms, and extending mandatory service. The IDF is facing a shortfall of around 12,000 troops, including thousands in combat roles.
אני רוצה לומר שאנחנו חסרים בצה"ל כ-15,000 חיילים, מתוכם בין 7,000 ל-8,000 לוחמים. אנחנו נדרשים למנעד משימות. מנעד המשימות יתרחב, שטח הפנים של המשימות יתרחב, הוא לא כמו שהוא היה בעבר. שטח הפנים ביהודה ושומרון יתרחב. החזית בלבנון, מרחב ההגנה הקדמי שאנחנו מייצרים, נדרש לעוד כוחות צה"ל, גם בעתיד, לאורך זמן. גם בעזה, לאורך הקו הצהוב, נדרשים עוד כוחות. גם בסוריה אנחנו נלחמים כמו שאמרתי, ואנחנו צריכים להיות ערוכים למשימות העתיד. לשם כך נדרשים עוד לוחמים בצה"ל. את זה אמר הרמטכ"ל. ותראו, הרמטכ"ל מחויב להביע את עמדתו ביחס לכשירות צה"ל.
The strain is being driven by simultaneous operations, airstrikes linked to Iran tensions, ground fighting in southern Lebanon, and increased deployments in the West Bank. The warning also comes amid political deadlock over expanding recruitment and sharing the burden more evenly. Opposition leader Yair Lapid has hit out at the government, accusing it of entering a multi-front war without adequate planning. Despite the warning, the IDF continues active operations and retains significant military capability. But the concern remains sustainability over time.
So as the war in West Asia continues, there are statements that are coming in. There's a contrast if you see what Trump is saying and what Tehran is saying. Now, on one hand, you have Donald Trump claiming that Iran is eager to strike a deal and end this war soon. He talks about how nicely they've been talking and they want an extension. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, says that Tehran will continue to defend itself as long as it is necessary. So the sharp contrast in this messaging is only showing that there is uncertainty. You can't even trust who's saying what. And as we see, Trump continues to change his goalposts also. He continues to give out those deadlines as well, extending those deadlines. He keeps on saying that there are leaders from Tehran that are talking to him, wanting to talk to him. Tehran says he should name the leaders he's talking about. So there is messaging that is giving out some mixed signals. And the question remains, who is going to blink first?
As the dynamics of the West Asia war continue to shift rapidly, contradictory statements are emerging from US and Iran, signaling that the conflict may not end anytime soon. US President Donald Trump, in his latest remarks, claimed that Iran was eager to negotiate and that the war could end soon.
The problem with the Straits is this. Let's say we do a great job. We say we got 99%. 1% is unacceptable because 1% is a missile going into the hull of a ship that cost $1 billion, right? So 1% is we can't. If we do a 99% decimation, that's no good. So it's really, you know, a little bit. But I have a feeling it's going to clean up pretty quickly. I could just say this: they want to make, and I probably hurt our little negotiation. It gives them a little impetus to say, well, I wish you didn't say that. But they said yesterday that we weren't negotiating with them, and now they admit that we were negotiating with them. So they want to make a deal. The reason they want to make a deal is they have been just beat to shit.
But Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, has openly denied US's statement. He said that Iran will continue to defend itself and its territory as long as needed.
In the face of earlier manifestations of lawlessness and atrocity in occupied Palestine, Lebanon, and elsewhere, indifference and silence in the face of injustices would bring no security and peace. It would invite more insecurity and right violations. The United Nations and the core values it embodies, as well as the overall human rights framework, are at serious stake.
Araghchi also asserted that Iran has the right to defend itself against what he called acts of aggression and that US cannot so easily absolve itself of killing school children in Minab.
Among the most harrowing manifestations of this aggression was the calculated, phased assault on Shajarat Tayyib Elementary School in the city of Minab, south of Iran, where more than 175 students and teachers were slaughtered in cold blood. This barbaric attack is but the visible tip of a far bigger iceberg.
Not only this, IRGC issued a direct threat of strikes as he asked people to evacuate areas near US-Israeli bases, saying that they might be struck. Even as questions grow over negotiations that were reportedly underway before hostilities began, the West Asia war is now nearing its fourth week. Iran has repeatedly argued that under the UN Charter, it retains the right to defend itself against what it calls external aggression. With US claiming Iran wants a deal and Tehran insisting the war will continue as long as needed, the future of the conflict remains uncertain, leaving the geopolitical situation in West Asia increasingly unpredictable.
Now joining us live is Sanjeev P. Yadav, who is a geopolitical expert. Sir, thank you very much for speaking to Republic. You know, this difference of statement that US President Donald Trump on one hand saying that there are true talks, there is going to be a ceasefire, and then a Foreign Minister IRGC just hours later talks to the media and says that they are not the ones demanding for a premature ceasefire, even as Trump goes on to say that Iran is the one begging to make a deal. How do you read this?
Well, I think we can know a few different things quite clearly. One, there is a struggle for leadership at the top in the IRGC, in Iran, and there's most assuredly chaos going on in terms of various factions and forces. And I think part of the narrative control that President Trump exercises with his truth socials and his commentary is that he's constantly probably even feeding into that chaos and this fear within different factions about who's talking to whom and who's engaging with whom. Now, it's clear from the multi-party or multi-nation coalition that is involved in facilitating these talks that the talks are happening. But I think the talks also achieve a few different things. One, they are allowing the United States to buy time as they continue to mass forces in the region for potential operations in Iran or around Iran in the Persian Gulf with Karg Island. There's reports that an additional 10,000 troops might be sent. You have the reports about the deployment of the 82nd Airborne Division. The Marine Expeditionary Force has been heading to the region and likely has arrived. So a lot of these different variables are coming into play. And I think it's quite clear that there are talks going on with different factions within the leadership. There are even reports out of, I think, Pakistan and some of the other countries that are involved in the talks about even specific requests have been made about not targeting certain individuals in the IRGC in ongoing strikes by the Israelis or the Americans going forward. Given that those are the counterparties that are actually engaging at this time. So it's clear talks are going on based on many different reports from different parties. And I think we are seeing that on one side, you have the American forces massing in the region with a clear signal about what might be upcoming. Yep. And you have an IRGC that is trying to figure out how they survive and live to either fight another day or live to continue to control Iran. And within that, you have a fractured leadership with most of the top leadership taken out in the first wave of the attacks, and a fractured remaining leadership that is trying to survive. So I think we need to keep all of that close to mind in terms of how we view the ongoing conversations and talks going forward. And I think we need to keep one other fact in mind, which is the president and the Americans are going to have a summit with the Chinese, I think around May 14th. Yeah. And a lot of the thinking that is going on around this conflict will be sending signals to the Chinese in advance of those talks.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different messaging coming out of this.
Yeah. Mr. Yadav, also the fact that there are cracks that are now coming to the surface as far as the US and Israel are concerned. And the latest what we're learning is that, J.D. Vance had a really heated conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu. The fact that he says that, not really an appropriate war has been sold to Trump. That's what, in short, we understand with the international reporting, the headline that are doing the rounds. The fact that he was too optimistic, Vance says that Netanyahu has been too optimistic about the idea of, eliminating the Iranian leadership is concerned. And there's a lot of question about who really is the leader. Does America, do they really recognize the new Ayatollah as, or rather, his son, Ayatollah Khamenei's son, as the Ayatollah, as the leader? Who are they speaking to? There's no clarity on that. On the other hand, you have J.D. Vance, who is expected to lead the talks if they happen for a deal, as Trump says. There are cracks emerging. You think that this will weaken the United States and this entire conflict and their stand as well here?
Well, I think there's two things there in your question. One, obviously, the reported call between Vice President Vance and Prime Minister Netanyahu, where I think the reports are that Vice President Vance expressed frustration that the likelihood that was sold of possible or potential regime change is not bearing out potentially. Whether that's the case or not, I do think obviously we've all known since day one that the Israeli objectives, while in a larger sense are aligned with the Americans, their specific objectives may be divergent. But I do not think